Hey guys, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments. What am I to you, Sasuke? Naruto asked while yelling at him questioningly. Sasuke sadly looked down at the water they both stood on. You are my friend, my best friend. Sasuke immediately looked back up at Naruto, his Sharingan blazed. I have to leave that weak village, and that is why I had to kill you. To get the power to kill my brother, you wouldn't understand. That is bull. You could be so much better than that, Sasuke. I won't let you go to that bastard, even if I have to break your arms and legs. Naruto retorted as he coughed up some blood into the water from his still healing chest. Naruto shifted his stance to all four of his limbs as the chakra cloak surrounded him. The chakra formed a single tail and a pair of fox ears jutting from Naruto's head. You said that before, and look where it got you, a Chidori in the chest. I don't know how you heal so quickly, but I will gain power from killing you. What is this power I feel? How does he have such power? He should be dead. Sasuke's thoughts wandered over what had happened so far. They had been fighting for over 20 minutes now. Sasuke was at first winning the battle with ease. But Sasuke finally started to understand that Naruto, while fighting seriously, was not putting his whole heart into the fight. To Sasuke, Naruto prattled on and on about how Sasuke was important to him because he thought of him as a brother. Brother? Huh. Naruto had never had anyone in his life. I am of the Uchiha and we are the elite. He is nothing and will continue to be nothing. Naruto, but I do feel a connection, as you are the one who has been able to push me past my limits where others could not. For that you are my one and only best friend. Sasuke's musing continued as he contemplated what was happening to Naruto. Naruto's tail wagged from side to side as the pressure of the chakra increase subsided and only left the vileness of the chakra that had encompassed Naruto. Sasuke watched with his fully developed Sharingan. It had done so only a little while ago in this fight. While it might not be enough to win, and he needed more to seal his victory and Naruto's death. The curse seal on Sasuke's neck moved across his body and covered him with black patches. You may be special, but I am more special than you, Naruto. I am an Uchiha and you are just a pathetic loser. You always have been and you always will be. Sasuke taunted Naruto. Naruto disappeared suddenly and reappeared 10 meters away. He then ran towards Sasuke. Teme! Naruto yelled in aggravation. Naruto's features had already gone from normal to feral, and now they went to completely wild. His nails had become claws. His canines had elongated, his hair became wilder. His whisker marks became darker. And his eyes had turned from deep cerulean blue to red with slits for pupils. Fire style. Fireball jutsu. Sasuke yelled as he sent yet another fireball at Naruto. Not unlike the last 5 had sent at him, had done anything more than singe some of his clothes. And the Chidori wound appeared to be nearly healed. Only the hole in the blood on his jacket bore witness that the attack had even hit Naruto. Naruto swung his arm towards Sasuke and the chakra arm flowed at Sasuke. It slammed into Sasuke from over 5 meters away, sending Sasuke careening into the canyon wall. Sasuke began to laugh manically. What is so funny, Teme? Naruto yelled, asking for an answer. The dust began to clear and Naruto began to see a sight that shocked and sent a shiver down his spine. Sasuke's curse seal again spread, and this time it covered his entire exposed skin, turning his pale complexion completely black for a few seconds. Sasuke's hair turned gray. A gray 4-point star appeared on his face around the nose area. Sasuke's skin turned a putrid shade of gray, and then star mark turned black. Sasuke's eyes were now black where the whites should have been. His Sharingan continued to blaze. His chakra became twisted and evil. You see, I am better than you. Sasuke again taunted Naruto. Naruto reached out with his chakra arm and slammed Sasuke into the leg of the Madara statue at the edge of the waterfall. Naruto was surprised when he looked at Sasuke, only to find what looked like clawed and webbed hand protruding from Sasuke's back as if to protect him. Sasuke had grown a grotesque wane. Naruto was suddenly flung across the face of the waterfall into the leg of the first Hokage statue on the other side of the waterfall. When the dust cleared, Naruto had started to form a single-handed Rasengan using both his and the Kyuubi's chakra. Sasuke grimaced in pain as a second hand came out of his back to give him a pair of grotesque wings. Sasuke then looked at Naruto and saw his left arm hung lifeless and that Naruto was winching in pain. It seems that this power of yours comes at a price. Time to end this. Chidori. Sasuke ran through the 3 familiar seals and then produced a standard Chidori. He then pushed the vile chakra from the seal into the Chidori, turning it into a sickly black lighting. One last chance, Naruto, do me a favor and just die so that I can have my revenge on Itachi. Sasuke almost pleaded with Naruto. No, I promised Sakura-chan I would bring you back, and that is what I am going to do. I will not die for you, I have my own dreams. I have been alone too long and I am not going to die here. Not when I have found some people that mean so much to me. Naruto yelled his reply, which only angered the Uchiha even more. Both jumped in front of the waterfalls and flew towards each other. The attacks connected as Chidori and Rasengan was heard. Both were encompassed by the release of energy from both of the attacks, while that release pushed the waterfall back upon itself and up into the air. Naruto reached forward and scratched Sasuke's Hitai 8, while Sasuke's clawed hand minus the Chidori hit Naruto right above the heart. Sasuke smirked as he felt Naruto's sternum break and his hand start to enter Naruto's body. That was until he felt a fist hit him in the right side directly in the ribs. He felt several of his own ribs break as he and Naruto flew apart. Naruto landed on the river bank, rolling onto his back as blood began to pool in the wound in the center of his chest. Naruto's breathing was shallow but still there. Sasuke had bounced off the back of the waterfalls only to land near Naruto, only further injuring to his ribs. The sun was slowly being blocked out by the clouds that made a ray of sun that bathed Naruto in an almost angelic light. Sasuke slowly crawled over towards Naruto. As he did, the ray of sun slowly shrunk to be only a small beam centered on Naruto's face. Sasuke pulled himself towards Naruto as the ray of sun at last disappeared. Sasuke's bloody hand reached up and touched Naruto's neck as pain racked Sasuke and thus caused him to collapse. Sasuke's Hitai 8 fell as he did this only to land on Naruto's open hand. The rain began to fall and soaked both the boys. A few minutes later, Kakashi and Pakin entered the Valley of the End. Both jumped down the walls as the forms of Naruto and Sasuke came into sight. Kakashi surveyed the two boys. Naruto still bled from the wound in the center of his chest. Sasuke had his hand at Naruto's throat and was dripping blood from his hand in his opened mouth. There were 2 holes in both of the boys' shirts. Naruto had 2 in the chest, one filled with bloody water, and Sasuke had 2 in the back where his wings had sprouted, but now they were gone. Looks like Naruto accomplished the mission of stopping him. All we need to do now is bring them back to Konoha. Pakin stated, I am rather low on chakra and am not sure if I can bring them both back. Kakashi stated bluntly to his canine friend, do I have to drag the Uchiha brat, or are you going to take a soldier pill and make a Kage Bunshin? Pakin inquired, almost annoyed at Kakashi's laziness. Kakashi finally nodded as the rain subsided and popped a pill in his mouth. He then pulled his mask back into position over his nose and mouth. He then crossed his fingers and stated, Kage Bunshin. A second Kakashi appeared and picked up Naruto as the original picked up Sasuke. All 3 leapt back up towards the cliffside and headed back towards Konoha. Kakashi, his clone and Pakin were jumping back through the trees and were suddenly joined by several medical shinobi. What is the status of Naruto Uzumaki and Sasuke Uchiha? Matate inquired. Sasuke appears to have broken ribs and possible internal injuries. Naruto will be fine, Kakashi stated bluntly. How are the others? The rest of the team are all back in Konoha, having all sustained injuries. Akamichi and Hyuga are in the most serious condition, while Inuzuka sustained serious but not life-threatening injuries and Nara sustained the lightest injuries. Matate stated, and then surprise came over his face. Kakashi-san, you are covered in blood and trailing quite a bit. Did you injure yourself? That is a Kage Bunshin, and no, I am not injured. Kakashi replied. Then Kakashi, stop now. Naruto appears to need immediate medical attention. We will field treat them both now so that we can ensure that both your students survive. Matate demanded as Kakashi and his clone dropped to the ground. Setting both boys down, Kakashi noticed that Naruto's wound had not healed much at all. He is healing more slowly than I thought he would. Kakashi thought as Sasuke coughed up some blood but otherwise was breathing fine. How are they? Kakashi asked with worry in his voice. Matate had looked over Naruto and continued to shake his head. Migaki spoke up after examining Sasuke. Uchiha-san should be fine for transport. He has broken ribs and a concussion. He has a bruised lung and spleen but otherwise is just suffering from chakra exhaustion. Uzumaki-san is suffering from a partial lung, a heart murmur, blood loss and is bleeding internally. I was able to stop the bleeding for now, but we need to get him back to Konoha immediately. Matate stated as he picked up Naruto and jumped off. Migaki picked up Sasuke, Kakashi, Pakin and the last medic all followed them back to Konoha. Back in the Konoha hospital, Shikamaru had just been insulted by Tamari and his father as Tsunade left the operating room where she had just stabilized Choji's condition. Choji will make it, he is out of the woods now. Shikaku, your book on Akamichi medicines was quite impressive. I would not have been able to figure out how to save Choji without it. Tsunade said to Shikaku as she sighed and then sat down. Everyone turned to a hallway where Shizune appeared. Tsunade-sama, Tsunade-sama, Kakashi and the second medical team have returned with both Sasuke and Naruto-kun. Naruto-kun is in bad shape and we need to hurry. Also Neji Hyuga is out of danger and should make a full recovery. Shizune said as she hurried back the way she came. Tsunade cleared her throat. Shikamaru, you have successfully completed your first mission as leader, congratulations. I will debrief you after we get Naruto out of danger. Tsunade said as she ran off towards her newest waiting patient. If Shizune says that Naruto is in bad shape, then it must be bad. Naruto woke up to the smell of antiseptic and bleach. He recognized it as one of the places he hated most, and Naruto did hate this place. He was in the hospital yet again. He opened his eyes and noticed Shikamaru sitting on the bed as he played shogi with himself. Hey Shika, Naruto barked out as he startled Shikamaru. So you are finally awake. It has only been 3 days. Man, you are troublesome, Shikamaru said with a smile as he handed Naruto a glass of water to quench his parched throat. Naruto graciously accepted the glass and drank it down. Naruto was brought up to speed with the mission and how he had saved it from failure, but the really good news was that no one in the group had died. Naruto apparently was the closest to death of the team. Choji and Neji were close seconds. Naruto began to plot a prank with Shikamaru on Choji as the door slid open and slammed against the braces. Sakura appeared in the doorway and she appeared to not be pleased. She looked ready to kill, if you were to read the look on her face. She walked straight over to Naruto and slapped him on the side of the face. She had hit him so hard he went barreling through the window, breaking it in the process. Naruto continued out the window and landed on the pavement walkway outside the building. Naruto landed face first, skidding to a halt in front of Kurenai and Hinata. Hinata looked down in fear but was not sure what to do, either pass out or help Naruto. She opted to help Naruto and bent down to help roll him into a laying position. Naruto-kun, are you okay? Naruto was lucky he landed on his head, so the injury was lessened. At least that was Sakura's opinion as she looked out the window to survey her work. Kurenai looked angrily at the pink-haired girl and gently picked up Naruto with the help of Hinata. They proceeded to take him back to his room, quickly. What the hell do you think you are doing, Sakura? He is severely injured, you know. Shikamaru demanded angrily, yelling at Sakura. Kurenai and Hinata had brought Naruto to the doorway as Shikamaru started his questioning. Naruto had woke up to Shikamaru's voice and looked to see Hinata with a concerned look on her face and that he was being carried by Kurenai. I was getting even with Naruto. Sakura spat out with so much venom that Naruto winced in phantom pain. What the hell are you talking about? He brought back your precious Sasuke. What else did you want from him? Shikamaru demanded with even more vigor. He promised to bring him back. But not in pieces. Sakura yelled at Shikamaru. I told you this might be how it would be, didn't I? Shikamaru stated. Yes, but he hurt Sasuke-kun. And I won't forgive him for that. Sakura yelled at Shikamaru. She finally noticed that Naruto was back in the room. She then stomped towards him. Sakura-chan, what are you doing? Naruto asked timidly. He fought me and I did all that I could to bring him back without killing him. I fulfilled my promise to you and brought him back for you. Naruto stated and coughed up some blood. He then covered his head with his bandaged hands and arms as if knowing that she was going to hit him. Sakura was moving in for the kill when her fist was intercepted by a hand. You will leave Naruto-kun alone. He did as you asked, you nasty witch. How dare you attack an injured teammate? Hinata yelled bright red with anger at Sakura. What, are you going to defend your lover? Sakura asked in an annoyed tone. Hinata immediately turned red, started to push her index fingers together and began to talk unintelligibly. Sakura slapped Hinata and then took aim again at Naruto as she ignored the killing intent rising from both Kurenai and Hinata. This is for hurting my Sasuke-kun. I love him and you should have brought him back without hurting him, you monster. Sakura said as her fist traveled towards the blonde. The light went out in Naruto's eyes as he resigned himself to die at Sakura's hands. Just as Sakura's fist was about to connect, Sakura was sent flying into the wall. And I love Naruto-kun and you will no longer hurt him. Hinata yelled at Sakura. Suddenly Hinata realized what she had said. She turned to Naruto, who looked at her dumbfounded. Hinata turned bright red and promptly fainted. Kurenai raised an eyebrow and smiled warmly at both Naruto and Hinata. Troublesome? Shikamaru stated as he moved out the way for Kurenai to set the stunned Naruto back into his bed. Yes, young girls are that. Tsunade said as she entered the room, picked up Hinata and placed her in the other bed next to Naruto. Shizune, check out Sakura. And when she wakes up, put her in lockdown for striking an injured patient. Hi Tsunade-sama. Shizune responded with an irritated voice. What just happened? Naruto asked with a look of utter confusion upon his face. Well, which part do you want me to explain? Tsunade asked as she started to examine to Naruto. All of it? Naruto replied. Tsunade smiled warmly as she did a diagnostic jutsu on Naruto. Let's see, Sakura is mad at you for doing your duty and hurting Sasuke. You brought him back like I ordered, injured yes, but less so than any of you guys other than Shikamaru. Good job by the way. Let's see, Sakura cracked a couple vertebrae, your jaw and your skull. I wasn't even sure that was possible. And Hinata over there declared her love for you, kind of cute if you ask me. She then defended you from attack. So what are you going to about it? Tsunade asked kindly. I don't know, Naruto replied as he tried to assimilate all the information. Well, let's start with your report then. Tsunade prodded Naruto gently. Well, after bushy brows took over the fight with that bone guy for me, I chased Sasuke. The Teme kept on taunting me. I tried to talk to him and get him to return, but he just laughed at me and called me and the village weak. I punched him trying to knock some sense into him and he tried to kill me for just punching him. We fought and I had to use him. Sasuke pushed a Chidori right through my chest, here. Naruto explained as he pointed to his right chest where there was a patch of lighter colored skin. It was aimed for my heart, but I was able to divert it at the last moment. He really wanted to kill me, saying that, killing you will allow me to gain the power I need to kill Itachi, whatever that means. We fought for quite a while. As the battle began to draw to a close, Naruto looked down and swallowed hard. He called me his best and only friend, and that was the reason he had to kill me. He ordered me to die. I got so angry I continued to pull from my second chakra reserve and again we fought. He transformed into something hideous with wings and all. We made one last attack against each other. He powered up another Chidori and I made a Rasengan. They hit and they destroyed each other. I scratched his Hitai, and I also got a good hit to his ribs while he dug his clawed hand into my chest. Interesting, sounds like the people we fought. They said they were fighting at their second level of their curse seal. Must be what Sasuke was doing, Shikamaru stated. Kamizuki appeared in the doorway. Hokage-sama, the council is demanding your presence. I'm sorry Hokage-sama. Tsunade waves Kamizuki off. That is okay. What do the old buzzards want now? I don't know, but they said it was urgent. Kamizuki replied with a bow. Naruto, you get to feeling better and keep an eye on that one, she might be a keeper. Tsunade said, pointing at Hinata, smiled and ruffling his hair. And forget about the pink one. She will not let go. Tsunade said with a gentle smile and left the room. Shizune picked up Sakura and left right behind Tsunade. She deposited her on an empty gurney and followed Tsunade after whispering orders to one of the nurses. Naruto's eyes moved back and forth between the door and the bed with Hinata. What do I do? Sasuke is all Sakura thinks about and wanted. I guess I understood that when I promised her that I would bring him back. Now she hates me for fulfilling my promise to her. She begged me to bring him back. I just figured if I did this she would at least be a little nicer to me. Naruto thought to himself. Hey, so what are you going to do? I mean, you have the daughter of the Hiyashi Hyuga right there and she professed to be in love with you. I would say that you could do a lot worse. I mean, a girl who says she loves you is a good start. Especially for a guy who kept on hitting on the pink banshee and would get clobbered every time you ask her out. Shikamaru said with a gentle smile. Naruto smiled and put his hand behind his head. Yeah, Sakura can get a little violent. I think I am getting sort of tired of it. Naruto said cheerfully and then looked directly at Shikamaru, who had a stunned look on Shikamaru's face. What? Shikamaru shook his head. What, no-chan? Naruto looked confused for a second and then looked like he was thinking. Well, I have never had someone say they like me, let alone say that they love me. I mean, almost the entire female population our age is after Sasuke Teme. I guess I am wondering what it is like to talk to a girl and not have her clobber me for once. Or if she does, at least she would say it was because she cared about me. Hinata had woken before Tsunade had left but feigned being asleep. Maybe Naruto-kun will give me a chance, were her thoughts as she contemplated what to do next. Tsunade walked into the council chamber in a surprisingly good mood. First, Naruto had survived being attacked by Sasuke, and second, Hinata Hyuga of all people had stood up to one of the people who had been mean to her adopted son and professed her love for him. Tsunade sat in her chair. Okay, what is so important that you have to pull me from treating patients and injured shinobi? Tsunade asked with a sigh. Tsunade-hime, are we to understand that the demon brat brought back the Uchiha boy? Kaharu asked in an angry tone. Tsunade wore a confused look on her face. Shikamaru Nara and his team were able to successfully retrieve the missing nin Sasuke Uchiha. On that point, the council has decided that Sasuke will not have been listed as missing ninja. A majority of the council feel that that boy was the cause of him leaving in the first place. So no punishment will be put upon Sasuke Uchiha. Homura explained. Tsunade stood and slammed her fist on the table, cracking it. What? I have 5 injured genin and 2 injured jonin, who had to deal with the group that accompanied Sasuke on his little merry trip to go see Orochimaru. And you want to just set him free? He severely injured one of my genin personally, with the intention of killing him. His death would have been immaterial. The important fact is that Sasuke is back in the village, Kaharu stated. A large group of the clans grumbled at that statement but were outnumbered by the older shinobi and civilians on the council. You see, Tsunade-hime, we know you favor the boy and are just making sure that the interests of the village are looked after before your own personal agenda is satisfied. It has also been decided that the demon child will either be exiled, or if you prefer, we could have him executed if he does not accept exile. Danzo stated. What are you thinking? He is Konoha's Jinchuriki. There is also Akatsuki to worry about. Aren't you worried about what they might do to Naruto? Tsunade asked as her worry piled up. We are strong enough a village now that we can deal with a few missing nins. Danzo stated. They are all A ranked or higher. One even slaughtered his own clan. Now why do you want to exile Naruto so badly? Tsunade asked pointedly. He is guilty of stealing, making a general nuisance of himself and injuring a fellow shinobi. Homura stated. Which shinobi are we referring to? Tsunade asked, not liking where this was going. First we must point out Sasuke Uchiha, and second we point out Mizuki Toji. Kaharu stated. Both were traitors. Mizuki was trying to steal the Forbidden Scroll and Sasuke left without permission and was traveling to a known enemy. Tsunade protested. It is our understanding that Naruto Uzumaki stole the scroll. Homura replied. Only after being coerced into it, by being told that he could pass the genin exam if he delivered it to Mizuki. Thus Mizuki is the guilty party. Tsunade protested. Naruto still stole the scroll, and that in itself is a crime punishable by death. Kaharu replied angrily. And he severely injured Sasuke Uchiha while he was supposed to retrieve him. We might have lost the Uchiha line permanently. Homura answered. Uchiha resisted and force was required to bring him back. I authorized force to be used if necessary. And why are you so worried about the Uchiha line? Tsunade said. Hiashi stood and yelled. I have had enough of this witch hunt. I am leaving. Hiashi got up and left, taking along with him Shibi Aburame, Sume Inazuka, Choza Akamichi, Shikaku Nara and the Inoichi Yamanaka. Now we can actually some business done without them being here and in the way. We do have a quorum. And thus we can pass what is needed for this village. Also we know that the Fire Daimyo will sign off on the order to either exile Uzumaki or execute him. So it is up to you to decide. You have a week to have him prepared for his exile or his death. Danzo stated as he and the rest of the council left, leaving Tsunade nearly in tears. I will not sign the order, so you on the council will have to do your own dirty work. I will of course inform him. Mark my words, others will not be pleased with what you are doing and Konoha will suffer. Tsunade walked out of the council chambers and into her office. She began to weep uncontrollably as she slumped into her chair. Tsunade was sitting at her desk while Shizune continued to try to calm her down and not let her do anything rash. They want to either kill Naruto, Shizune, or have him exiled. Tsunade said as tears ran down her face. It can't be that bad, Lady Tsunade. Shizune tried to reassure Tsunade. No, it is worse, they want to put a deadline on his leaving and he isn't even out of the hospital yet. Those injuries he got would have killed even a Sannin. Sasuke's injuries are light compared to the others except for maybe Shikamaru. He may be a dimwit, but he is the reason I came back here. If they send him away, I have no reason to be here, the village be damned. Tsunade said with conviction. Lady Tsunade, we can't abandon the village like that, it wouldn't be right. Shizune lectured Tsunade. This time the village is abandoning us, especially him. It isn't his fault that the Kyuubi is stuck in him. Tsunade sobbed out. Yes, it is fault of my student and his effort to protect this village. So when are we leaving with the Gaki? Jiraiya asked with a lecherous grin while he sat on the windowsill. Tsunade's attitude changed and she got a gleam in her eyes. You are not leaving, but I have an idea. I need you to cover for me for a while so that I can do something with the Yondaime's legacy. Tsunade said with a wicked grin as she pulled out a picture of Hinata Hyuga. What about the Hyuga girl? Jiraiya said with disdain. She is quiet but powerful. She also showed me something that I like. She appears interested in our favorite Gaki. Tsunade said with a grin. Jiraiya, seal up all of Naruto's stuff and have it here in the morning. Shizune, find me Hinata Hyuga. I have an apprentice to appoint and some paperwork to fill out. Aye. Are you feeling alright, Lady Tsunade? Shizune asked as Jiraiya slipped out the window towards Naruto's apartment. Naruto was just waiting for the nurse to arrive, thus bringing him his nightly dinner. The door opened and a dejected-looking Jiraiya and a somber-looking Iruka entered. Yo Gaki, want to go out to ramen our treat? Jiraiya asked in a somber mood. Naruto was not sure how to react. First Tsunade Obachan had said he needed to stay in the hospital, but now Jiraiya and Iruka-sensei were offering to have him go out to dinner with them. Naruto did not quite trust Jiraiya because of his training and leaving him with the bill. What's the catch, Ero Sennin? Naruto asked with a questioning look. Can I take my favorite Gaki out to dinner? Jiraiya asked innocently. Right, last time you said you would treat, I ended up paying for it. Naruto said with a huff. It isn't my fault you misunderstood what I was talking about when I said we would go eat your favorite food. Jiraiya pleaded innocently. And then you had me get clobbered by Sakura as part of training. What was that all about? Naruto replied angrily. What no-chan for poor Sakura? Jiraiya inquired playfully as Iruka had also noticed the missing chan suffix on Sakura's name also. Not after what she did to me earlier today. She punched me out through a window. Talk about adding insult to injury. And then Hinata-chan defended me. Naruto replied with a blush. He was not sure why he was blushing. He knew he was blushing and it just seemed to come naturally. What's wrong with a little punch? Tsunade Heim does it to me all the time. Jiraiya responded, and he did notice the blush on Naruto's face at the mention of the Hyuga girl. What? Sakura assaulted you while you were in the hospital? We are on the second floor. I know the Kyuubi heals you pretty quickly, but Naruto, that just isn't right. With Jiraiya-sama, Lady Tsunade will heal him up after hitting him. I know that Sakura doesn't have those skills. Iruka stated as he shook his head. So Hinata defended you? Was this before or after you were sent out the window? And why did Sakura send you out the window, Naruto? Naruto took a minute to think, then proceeded to explain what happened. You see, it is all Sasuke Tomi's fault. Sakura loves him and hid me because I hurt that Teme. That was the only way to bring him back, there was no other way. As for Hinata-chan defending me, well, Kurenai-sensei brought me back up to the room after Sakura sent me flying. When we got back into the room, Sakura was going to hit me again, but Hinata stopped her. Naruto explained while his face turned red. What did she say, Gaki? Jiraiya prodded with a lecherous look in his eyes. Sakura said that she loved Sasuke, and Hinata-chan said. Naruto gulped and turned even redder than before. Yes? Jiraiya asked as he moved closer to Naruto and drew out the yes. Naruto closed his eyes and took a deep breath. She said she loved me, okay. Naruto yelled out only to pull the covers over his head. Iruka beamed with joy. Hinata seemed to have gotten over her shyness and admitted her affection to the blonde he considered a son or younger brother. That is great, Naruto. Now you will treat her right, won't you? Naruto lowered the covers with a confused look on his face. What do you mean, why wouldn't I? She is a friend, Naruto replied. Iruka slammed his hand onto his forehead. Naruto, are you going to reject her right off the bat, are you? Iruka asked, not sure if he wanted to know the answer. What do you mean? I like her but I don't know if I love her. Naruto responded, but it sounded half-hearted. Naruto, get dressed and we will go out to eat. We will also have a talk. Actually, we have a few things to discuss, including your new girlfriend and how to treat her. Jiraiya said, throwing a fresh pair of clothes to the blonde. Naruto did as he was told, but not sure if he wanted to know what this talk was all about. Naruto, Iruka and Jiraiya left the hospital saying they would return the patient in an hour or two. Hinata-sama, you have a guest at the front gate. It is Shizune-san with a message from Hokage-sama. Neji said in a flat tone but with a gentle smile. Thank you, Neji-Nisan. I will be there in a few moments. Hinata responded as she pulled her jacket back on and headed towards the front gates of the Hyuga complex. Hinata bowed as she passed several branch family members who smiled and returned the bow. Shizune smiled warmly to Hinata and waited until she was standing right in front of her before addressing Hinata. Hokage-sama requests your presence before her immediately. Hi. Hinata responded as she fell into step behind Shizune as they walked towards the Hokage's tower. Naruto, before we begin I want to explain something to you. Jiraiya said in a serious voice as they sat down in their stools at Ichiraku ramen stand. Naruto nodded, he understood he needed to listen. Jiraiya sighed first, then looked directly into Naruto's eyes. Hurting a teammate when they are injured is not how you conduct a relationship, friendship, or teamwork. I know you have a thing for that pink-haired girl. Sakura, isn't it? A crush, so to speak, but that is all it is. She has rejected you how many times? Jiraiya inquired. I don't know, I haven't counted for years. Naruto replied with an annoyed tone. Let me ask you this then. Has she ever accepted your invite to lunch or dinner dates? Jiraiya asked. Yeah, once right before Sasuke ran away. Naruto replied, not sure what Jiraiya was getting at. Did you talk about each other? About, say, what your plans for the future are? Did she seem interested in what you had to say? Jiraiya asked. Naruto's face saddened. No, I tried to talk about lots of things but she seemed distracted and all she wanted to talk about was Sasuke. Naruto replied and drew out Sasuke's name. Naruto, Sakura has been chasing after Sasuke since before the academy. She, like a lot of the girls of your generation, were and still are fans of Sasuke. Hinata was one of the only one who seemed immune to Sasuke's supposed charm. She on the other hand appears to have fixated on you, Naruto. While Sakura likes you at most as a friend, Hinata seems to be more interested in you than she is any of the other boys. She has kept an eye on you from afar for a long time. Iruka said quietly. Hinata. Yeah, that pale-eyed Hyuga girl? Yeah, she only seems to hang around here when you are here, Naruto-kun. Ayame commented. You could do worse. That pink-haired girl seems nice but she did not appear to have any interest in you at all. Naruto brightened, almost ready to defend Sakura, but then became depressed. But Sakura, Hinata, could you guys be right? I'm so confused. Naruto yelled in a panic. That is a good place to start, Naruto-kun. Ayame smiled as she began to talk and serve the guys their ramen. Hinata knocked on the door of the Hokage's office only to hear a muffled, "Come in." Hinata bowed and looked at Tsunade. You called for me, Hokage-sama? Tsunade finished writing on the sheet of paper in front of her. Tsunade smiled and looked at the young girl. Her eyes were red and puffy as if she had been crying recently. Hinata Hyuga, I have a few questions for you and please answer the questions honestly. Hi, Hokage-sama. Hinata answered sharply but quietly. How would you like to become my apprentice? Tsunade asked as she folded her hands in front of her chin. Hinata blushed with surprised look on her face. Me? Why me? Well, between you and me I need someone with excellent chakra control. Being a Hyuga you fit the bill. You also more than likely to have some knowledge of healing already. This will help me in my instruction of an apprentice. Tsunade pointed out. I would love to become your apprentice. I am not afraid of hard work, Tsunade-sama. What are your other questions? Hinata asked. Well, were you serious with your statement in Naruto's hospital room? I am sorry to be so blunt and put you on the spot like this, but I need to know. Tsunade asked with a warm smile on her face. Hinata blushed and nodded. Tsunade smiled at her acknowledgement. For my next question I have to make you swear to secrecy. What I am going to tell you is a secret and I need you to not spread it. Tsunade looked at Hinata closely. Hinata contemplated what Tsunade had said to her. You can trust me, Hokage-sama. I can keep a secret, Tsunade-sama. Good. Naruto has been exiled by the council. Tsunade stated bluntly. She then waited to gauge the girl's reaction. Hinata became angry and tears welled in her eyes. No, they can't do that. That is the Hokage's job. He has done nothing wrong. No, they can't do that to my Naruto-kun. Hinata protested adamantly. Okay, given that, what would you do for Naruto? Tsunade asked with a smirk, hoping for a certain reaction. I would do anything. Would. Hinata's gulped and puts on a stern face. I would even face my father to help Naruto-kun. Hinata said as she trembled with both frustration and anxiety, her fists clenched. Tsunade smirked. How would you feel about leaving the village with Naruto, Shizune, Tonton and me? If I were to say leave the village with Naruto, would you come with us? Tsunade watched the emotions play over Hinata's face. Hi, Hokage-sama, I would leave with you and Naruto-kun. If only to be near him. Hinata replied, the last comment was barely audible. Tsunade smiled. Good, then pack up and we leave tomorrow morning at 6 am. Naruto and Shizune will be accompanying us. You are now officially my apprentice. Please sign here and make it official. Tsunade pointed to a paper which Hinata promptly signed. Maybe we could work on getting our idiot to notice you. Tsunade chided with a wink. Hinata smiled and blushed. I would like that. Hinata began to press her index fingers together in a nervous habit. Naruto woke early to a nudge from a certain perverted sage. Yo, Gaki, wake up. Time to go. I got everything packed for you. Go take a shower and get yourself cleaned up and put on the clothes I put on your bed. Jiraiya explained as he put a pack on Naruto's bed. Naruto groggily got out of the hospital bed. He then stripped off his clothes and his bandages. He then swiftly took his shower. He re-entered the room to find both Jiraiya and Iruka both waiting for him. No orange today, Gaki, and the Hyate will stay here. Until we can get things fixed, you are no longer a shinobi of the leaf. You are still my student and I expect you to learn a lot while you're gone. Now get dressed. Jiraiya ordered. Naruto put on the clothes, dark blue shinobi pants, shirt and jacket. There was also a Chunin vest. Naruto looked at Jiraiya questioningly, as Jiraiya just nodded. Iruka smiled as Naruto's face lit up at the prospect of wearing a Chunin vest. One of Hokage-sama's gifts, you are now a Chunin. It was a field promotion for successfully completing the mission. Now get to the West Gate and meet up with your traveling companions. I am sure you'll enjoy them. Iruka explained with wink at Jiraiya. Naruto grabbed his pack, which was unusually light for what he normally packed. He jumped out the window and headed towards his apartment. He entered and looked around his apartment and only the furniture was left. Naruto took one depressed look at both Jiraiya and Iruka and then ran into Iruka's arms. He hugged Iruka fiercely. I will miss you too, Naruto. You are like a little brother to me. Good luck on your journey. I hope you can come back stronger. Iruka said as a single tear ran down his face. Naruto next embraced Jiraiya with a hug just as fierce. I will miss you too, Gaki. You are like a grandson to me. I will do what I can to make you be able to come back and maybe take that Hokage position you want so badly. Naruto, not wanting to show weakness, smiled, waved and ran towards the gates. He found 3 cloaked figures, one slightly shorter than himself. About time you got here, now put this on. He recognized Tsunade's voice as she threw him a cloak. Anbu, no one is to follow us from the village for the first day. Tsunade said to no one in particular. The smallest cloaked figure moved closer to Naruto. I am glad I could accompany you on your trip, Naruto-kun. Naruto froze as he recognized the voice as Hinata's. Okay, let's move out, Tsunade stated as they headed out of the village. A few miles down the road, Tsunade spoke up. We are not missing Nin. We are independent shinobi. Naruto, you know why we are leaving the village, right? Naruto's face fell and he nodded. Yeah, I guess. It is because I hurt their precious Uchiha, right? Naruto drugged the E in precious out on purpose for effect. Tsunade nodded. Do you want to tell Hinata here the other reason? I am sure she will understand and not hate you for it. I would do it now so that she will not be surprised later. Tsunade almost ordered. Naruto looked dejected. Ah man, do I have to tell her? Naruto whined like he always did. But Hinata shocked as she noticed a tinge of fear evident in his eyes. Yes Gaki, you do. If you don't I will. Like I said, we don't want to surprise her later. Tsunade replied, nearly scolding Naruto. Her tone sounded more like a mother scolding a child. Hinata nearly laughed but thought otherwise as she noticed the concern weaved into her voice. Naruto sighed and then glanced around looking for a place to sit down, finding a fallen log. He sat down on the log and motioned for Hinata to join him. Hinata sat down as Naruto gulped loudly before he took a deep breath. Hinata, do you remember the stories of the Kyuubi attack on village almost 13 years ago? Naruto inquired. Why, yes, it is said that the Yondaime Hokage killed the great demon Kyuubi by sacrificing himself for the village. Hinata responded. Gulping again, Naruto replied. Well, you only know part of the truth. What do you mean, only part of the truth? Hinata questioned. As Naruto looked at Hinata, he sighed and thought. I guess this is it. It is either now or never. It is true that the Yondaime did sacrifice himself to stop the Kyuubi. Hinata's face went from expressionless to fearful. What do you mean that he only stopped the Kyuubi? Didn't it die? The Kyuubi is a Biju and thus impossible to kill. There is only one way to stop them. You need to seal inside something like we seal things using sealing scrolls. But with the more powerful ones there are special requirements. Naruto continued. Special requirements? What does he mean by special requirements? Hinata thought as Naruto continued his explanation. The Kyuubi, having 9 tails of power, is so powerful that it would need something with the willpower to suppress it and have chakra coils that could expand to deal with the strain of the additional chakra it would be giving off. Naruto's reflected his worry as he saw Hinata's face became more and more filled with rage. Only a newborn child would be able to handle the added strain and be able to grow under such a predicament. Naruto took a deep breath and then looked deep into Hinata's eyes. Hope showed as Naruto asked his next question. Do you know what day my birthday is? Naruto asked quietly. Why, yes I do. It is October 10th. Hinata replied without thinking. A moment later she had pieced the puzzle together and gasped at the implications. Naruto closed his eyes, lowered his head as he awaited Hinata's response of fear and loathing. That did not happen. Instead he felt a drop of moisture land on his hand. He opened his eyes to see Hinata crying before she wrapped her arms around him and proceeded to bury her head in his chest. Wincing in pain, Naruto looked up at Tsunade as if to questioning what to do next. His gaze was rewarded by seeing Tsunade and Shizune both crying. Looks like you're stuck with her, kid. Tsunade said with a chuckle once the crying had subsided. Naruto sighed gently as he placed his hand upon Hinata's head. Hinata looked up at Naruto with sad eyes. I am sorry Naruto-kun that you had to have such a burden for so long and I didn't realize your pain. Please forgive me. Hinata again buried her head in Naruto's chest, eliciting a slight oomph from Naruto. Hinata didn't raise her head and apologized. Sorry, that's alright, Naruto said as he lifted Hinata's face to look at him. Hinata-chan? Naruto inquired. Yes Naruto-kun, Hinata answered. Did you mean what you said back in the hospital? And now that you know my secret, do you still feel the same way? Naruto queried. Hinata nodded and stammered out her response. Naruto-kun is Naruto-kun. She then put her head down on his chest as her blush made red apples look pale in comparison. Naruto just smiled warmly as he brushed her hair with his hand for several minutes as Hinata composed herself. Better? Naruto asked. Hinata nodded and extracted herself from Naruto. She was still blushing but had at least gone back to a pink shade. So Hinata, do you have a problem with Naruto being the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi? Tsunade solicited a shake of Hinata's head. Good, now we can continue. Shizune, you got everything that I told you take care of last night, didn't you? Shizune nodded. Yes Tsunade-sama. The money is sealed in one of the scrolls as is your hat. The scroll of sealing and a couple other scrolls are sealed in another scroll. Sarutobi-sama's summoning scroll in that scroll too. I have the 4th special dagger and notes on Hiraishin no Jutsu. I also have copies of Jutsu from Hiyashi for Hinata to study. Shizune's statement caused both Hinata and Naruto to take notice that Hiyashi had given something to them before they had left specifically for Hinata. Hinata helped Naruto stand up off the log and noticed he was in pain. Tsunade-sama, Naruto-kun isn't doing so good. He needs some help. Hinata yelled as she brought Naruto's arm over her shoulder just as Naruto collapsed into her. I think he passed out. Please, help him. Hinata begged. Tsunade pointed to a spot on the ground free of debris. Set him there, I need to check him. Also use your Byakugan to check his chakra network. Tsunade ordered as Hinata gently placed Naruto on the ground. Hinata activated her Byakugan as Tsunade did a diagnostic jutsu. Shizune. Naruto is suffering from internal bleeding again. Apparently he can only take so much Kyuubi chakra for repairs. We need to patch him up again. Tsunade turned to Hinata. He will be okay and don't blame yourself for his injuries. I am sure he was pushing himself too hard and opened up one of the sutures in his lungs. We can fix it, but what do you expect from him? He wasn't supposed to leave the hospital until the end of the week. But Tsunade-sama, I am sure that my jumping on him hurt him. So it is my fault. Hinata said as her eyes filled with tears. Naruto had his chakra network separated from his heart and his heart nearly shredded. I think you will survive this. So tell me what you see. Tsunade ordered gently. Hinata gulped down her tears and looked at Naruto's chest. His chakra network was in shambles near his lungs. There was red chakra surrounding the injury, but it was slowly fixing the damage. Tsunade, he only has a few chakra veins going into his arm. His lung does not have a chakra system at the moment. I do see red chakra building chakra veins in the area, but will take a long time at the rate they are going. They appear to be repairing a short length, then heal the area around the length, but the healing is faster than I have seen anyone heal. It must be the Kyuubi trying to repair the damage. When we put him back together he was a mess. He had a bruised heart and his right lung was missing. It was growing slowly and we estimated it would take about a week to be fully repaired. I guess my estimates were right. Tsunade looked around the area and pulled out a scroll. What is that scroll? Hinata asked as she held Naruto's hand and stroked his face gently, which elicited a weak smile. Oh, it's a camping equipment scroll. Shizune, gather some firewood. Hinata, I want you to sleep with Naruto tonight. Tsunade appeared to order Hinata. Hinata promptly passed out next to Naruto. Geez, I meant she would need to sleep in the same sleeping bag so that Naruto would not get cold. Tsunade stated as she chuckled at Hinata's antics. Tsunade and Shizune both made camp using the tents and equipment sealed up in the scroll. Shizune had just placed Naruto in a double-wide cot inside of a sleeping bag. Tsunade had gotten the fire started when Hinata had woken up. Good evening, sunshine. Tsunade teased the young Hyuga. I wanted to apologize and say that I didn't mean what you thought I meant earlier. I want you to share the sleeping bag with Naruto so that he doesn't get cold tonight. I just figured you wouldn't mind. I mean, Shizune could do it if you would like. Tsunade teased both Hinata and Shizune. Hinata pressed her fingers together in her familiar nervous habit. I would like to help Naruto-kun. Hinata replied nervously. Tsunade smiled gently. Take good care of my little brother. Tsunade's face changed to a stern look. We are going to start the both of you in your training tomorrow. Hinata, I know that you have good chakra control. We need Naruto to have similar control. Because of the Kyuubi, his chakra reserves are enormous. That and his family also had large reserves. You knew Naruto-kun's family? You should tell him. Hinata pleaded with Tsunade. It might help him to know he was loved. Everyone in the village treated him badly and for something he couldn't control. I knew his parents, but I will explain it later. For now you can tell him that he was loved by his parents and he can verify it with me. He is not ready for this truth, not yet. Now eat your dinner and go lay down beside your boyfriend. Tsunade teased as she handed Hinata a plate of food. What about Naruto-kun? Hinata asked as she took the plate. He should be out for the night. Shizune and I will keep watch. You just keep your Naruto-kun warm tonight. Tsunade ordered. Hinata blushed and smiled. Hi, Tsunade-sama, that's my girl. Tsunade stated as she handed a second plate to Shizune and filed a last plate for herself. Hinata snuggled up beside a shivering Naruto. He settled down after a while as her body heat helped heat him back up. Hinata slept the best she had in years and woke to see Naruto's gentle whiskered face. Tsunade walked over the sleeping pair and gently touched Naruto's shoulder. Naruto, Naruto, it is time to wake up. And be careful about it, you are injured. Naruto's eyes flittered open as he looked to see Hinata looking at him from inside the same sleeping bag. Morning Naruto-kun, Hinata took a deep breath as her face turned from pale to pink in a moment's time. Ba-chan? Why is Hinata's face turning red? Naruto inquired. Well Gaki, you see, Hinata here is shy and she likes you. You are in the same sleeping bag and she is not used to that being brought up as proper lady. Tsunade replied. How would I know anything about a proper upbringing? I didn't have anyone other than Gigi for a long time. I missed out on a lot. Naruto looked away, his eyes sad. Naruto-kun, I am here for you. We will try to help you where we can. Hinata said with all the courage she could muster. Tsunade did a diagnostic on Naruto and shook her head. Naruto, what am I going to do with you? I always seem to be patching you up from a lethal injury. Can I help it if I keep on getting the bad luck of the draw and getting opponents who want to kill me for some reason? Naruto retorted. Well, your internal bleeding has stopped and your lung will take about 2 weeks to repair itself. I am thinking we need to find a little more permanent lodging for us so that we can get you healed up and ready for your training under me. Tsunade stated with a broad smile. What do you mean training under you? I thought Eros Sennin was my sensei like Kakashi sensei. Naruto stated as he noticed Tsunade wince at the mention of Kakashi. What? Tsunade's face furrowed in both anger and disappointment as she looked at Naruto. I looked at the report that Kakashi filed and the ones the medical team filed. What has Kakashi done with your training? Tsunade asked as she knelt near the cot. Naruto looked up and to the right as he pondered the question. Well, he did teach us chakra tree climbing. Other than that, we would mold chakra and do taijutsu training. Was it training or just sparring? Tsunade asked. Well, it was mostly sparring as he would pit me against both Sakura and Sasuke Teme. Naruto looked suddenly depressed. He wouldn't even get me a decent trainer for the Chunin exams. Tsunade looked surprised. I thought Jiraiya trained you for the Chunin exams. Yeah, after Kakashi dumped me for Teme and gave me closet pervert Ebisu, special Jonin trainer. Naruto mocked the title for Ebisu and caused Hinata to giggle. I like your laugh, Hinata-chan, you should do it more often. Thank you, Naruto-kun. Hinata blushed as she replied. Okay, you got Ebisu as a trainer, what did he teach you? Tsunade inquired. Naruto took a deep breath and started the story. Well, I was not pleased with being dumped for Teme so closet perv and I played a game of tag. I lost and Ebisu took me out to lunch. He insulted me about my chakra control, big news to me. I have a ton of chakra and no control. Sakura has practically nothing for chakra and near complete control. So he went on about how they had better control than me and took me to the hot springs. To peek on women, no doubt. Tsunade added as she rolled her eyes. Well, not really, he showed me, or at least tried to show me how to walk on water. I got burnt and soaked by this and almost had it until I saw Eros Sennin peeping. Naruto chuckled. You see, Jiraiya flattened out Ebisu with a toad summons. Tsunade smiled at this. Yes, super pervert clobbers closet pervert. Well, I chased Jiraiya until I captured him. He still wouldn't train me. Well, he owed me training as he took my only trainer. Naruto pleaded to Tsunade, and Shizune's laughter. Well, I had to persuade him. Naruto bashfully explained to a raised eyebrow of Tsunade. I call it my sexy jutsu. It works on all perverts, it is a great distraction jutsu. I think I have heard of it. Tsunade said as she took a seat on her own cot. Naruto stood up with great pain and the help of Hinata. Naruto used the hand signs for the transformation jutsu. Sexy jutsu. Naruto said, quietly transforming into a female about 20 years old, well endowed, with 2 blonde ponytails and wearing a pink kimono. Tsunade looked on with an appraising eye. She could be somewhat distracting, I will give that she is pretty. So what causes it to be a true distraction? Tsunade asked before she figured that she would regret her decision. Hinata smirked and lowered her head, shaking it all the while. You asked for it. Sexy jutsu. Naruto smirked as her clothes disappeared and revealed a buxom beauty of a girl, whiffs of smoke covering her nipples and genital areas. This is the true sexy jutsu. Tsunade smirked wildly. I can see why it would cause a distraction. You got some very nice measurements. If you ever give up being a boy, you would make a beautiful girl. Tsunade teased as Naruto turned into puff of smoke, showing Naruto back to his normal form with a scowl. Hinata seemed disappointed and happy at the same time by the change. What does that look for Hinata? Hinata blushed red instantly. Naruto-kun is both handsome and beautiful. Hinata replied as she buried her face under the sleeping bag. Tsunade raised an eyebrow. Naruto, your jutsu appeared not to be genjutsu but an actual transformation. Am I correct? Yeah, it is an actual transformation. I can't do genjutsu to save my life. Naruto replied, not sure if he should be disappointed or proud. The transformation jutsu is normally a genjutsu, not an actual transformation. There is a transformation jutsu, but it is a Jonin level jutsu. I am not sure how you are able to do it, but you can do that jutsu without any of the required hand signs. Also, the jutsu is in the Forbidden Scroll. Do you know why? Tsunade asked as both Naruto and Hinata shook their heads. The jutsu requires more chakra than the normal transformation jutsu and can become permanent by rerouting your chakra network. You stumbled upon an improved version of the jutsu and have perfected it. I would say that we need Hinata to watch you perform the jutsu over time so that we can see if you have done something with how you mold the chakra that is different and would make it easier for us to use that jutsu rather than the genjutsu version. Naruto sat down and wore a confused look. Why? Well, genjutsu gives off signs that it is there, your jutsu does not. For all we know, it is related to the Kyuubi and would be a bloodline limit for you. Now back to your story. Tsunade smiled as she asked for Naruto to continue. Well, Ero Sennin watched me try to do water walking and asked me to mold some chakra. I was in my boxers so I wouldn't get all my clothes wet again. He hit my seal with his hand. I later found out from him that he removed a second seal that Orochimaru Teme had placed on me during the second part of the Chunin exams. It had really messed my chakra up. Naruto explained. So you fought Kiba-kun with a seal on top of the Kyuubi seal? Hinata gasped as she inquired. Naruto smiled. Yep, had I had access to all my chakra, Kiba wouldn't have stood a chance. But I continued anyways despite the handicap. After Ero Sennin removed the seal, I could walk on water without much problem. We then went on to learning summoning. I summoned Gamabunta, but only after he threw me off a cliff. All the females gasped at Naruto's comment. I went on to beat some sense into Neji and then beat some sense into Gaara of the desert. Wait, you beat Gaara? Tsunade asked pointedly. Yeah, Gamabunta and I beat him when he went into his fully transformed state. Naruto explained as if it was normal. You took on Shukaku, the one-tailed demon form of the Ichibi Jinchuriki? Tsunade asked almost incredulously. Yeah, I did. It took nearly everything I had, but I was able to beat him and scare him into going back to Suna. Naruto replied almost angrily as Hinata rubbed his back affectionately. Naruto froze as he felt the hand moving up and down his back. Naruto, not used to affection, had frozen and was not sure what to do. What is wrong, Naruto? Tsunade inquired with a worried look. Naruto hesitated in responding. I am not sure what to do. What do you mean, Naruto-kun? Hinata asked as she continued to gently caress his back. Naruto gulped. No one has ever rubbed my back to try to comfort me. Sure, maybe a pat on the back from Iruka or Gigi, but they would never rub. All three females looked sadly at Naruto as Hinata embraced him from behind. It is alright, Naruto-kun, we are here for you now and we promise you will get the treatment you deserve. Naruto weakly smiled as he was still not sure how to deal with the situation. With the pain and the new feelings, he could not put on his mask. What do we do now? Naruto asked as he was nearly in overload from affection. We have breakfast, then head in any direction we can to get away from Konoha for a little while. Or until the council comes to their senses. Tsunade responded as she walked out of the tent and began to cook the food with Shizune. Naruto extracted himself from Hinata as gently as he could and apologized. Hinata-chan, please do not get me wrong. I do like you, but I am still new to affection from someone who likes me more than a friend. I know I love to hug and play around. I do enjoy hugs, I am just not used to them. Naruto stated sadly. Can I have more? Naruto asked almost pleading. Hinata nodded as she had thought he would want her to stop giving him affection. It was just that he was not used to it, so he wanted to make sure he did not make a mistake and hurt her. She was happy as she again wrapped him in a hug. They stayed that way until they were called out to breakfast. Naruto offered Hinata his hand as he went for the opening of the tent. "You coming?" Hinata nodded and took his hand. They left the tent together as they went towards the campfire. "Okay, you're both now my apprentices. You will do what I tell you and when I tell you. Got it?" Tsunade stated more than asked. Hinata nodded enthusiastically. Naruto looked at her with a mix of confusion and challenge in his eyes. Shizune handed them a plate and a book named Basic Human Anatomy. "Here is breakfast and your work for today. We will be studying the human body to become medics. As Naruto-kun will have to take it easy, we will train his mind first, then we will train his body. I know if you can do the Rasengan, you can do simple diagnostic jutsu. Tsunade-sama, and I want to take your control to new heights." Shizune raised her hand to forestall any complaints she knew were coming. "I know you have poor chakra control because you have large amounts of chakra. Hinata-san and I will help you with chakra control, even if it means we will have to create some new jutsu for you to be able to do this. Does that sound acceptable, Naruto-kun?" Shizune asked with a kind smile. Naruto reluctantly nodded. "Will there be written tests? I do terrible on written tests." Naruto complained. "No, there will be oral tests to prove you have learned the lessons." And as Shizune pointed out, "Naruto, you are not in any condition to do any jutsu right now. We will work on the book work first and the chakra control will come as you finish healing. Now as you eat breakfast, I want you to read chapter 1 in the book." Tsunade ordered as she smiled and began to eat. "We will be headed to the northeast towards an area you might be familiar with, Naruto. I believe you know the way to the wave country, don't you?" Naruto nodded as he was eating his breakfast. "Good, then you will know some people there that might help us out while we are there." The group of 4 finished breakfast just as an Anbu agent landed next to Tsunade and whispered something into her ear. Her eyes shot wide. "Alright, everyone get into the woods now. Shizune, seal up the tent now and follow them." Tsunade ordered as 3 more Anbu jumped down and took places around the fire. Shizune sealed the tent quickly and dashed into the woods. Tsunade whispered orders and ran into the woods to conceal herself next to an uneasy Naruto and a smirking Hinata next to him. "Okay, we have a couple people heading this way, keep still and they should go away." Tsunade quietly ordered as the group nodded acknowledgement. Kakashi, Pakin, and an injured Akamaru and Kiba landed in the camp. "What can we do for you, Kakashi-san and Inazuka-san?" The wolf-masked Anbu asked. "We are looking for both Naruto Uzumaki and Hinata Hyuga. The council would like to speak to them and they are not where they are supposed to be." Kakashi droned out. "Sorry, can't help you, Kakashi-san. We are on a mission from the Hokage herself." Wolf replied. Pakin walked over to the bush that Tsunade was hiding behind and turned to Kakashi. "I have to relieve myself, Kakashi, so I will be right back." Pakin said as Kakashi just waved to him and continued his banter with the Anbu agents asking for breakfast from them, much to their and Kiba's annoyance. Pakin put his face right up to Tsunade and whispered. Tsunade-sama, Kakashi was ordered by the council to bring Naruto to them so they could give him a trial for hurting Sasuke. I would also like to report that Kakashi nearly didn't bring back Naruto from the Valley of the End. I had to force his hand by threatening to drag Sasuke back myself so that he could carry back Naruto, who was more grievously wounded. Also, I have this for you. Pakin stated as scroll appeared next to him. What is this? Tsunade questioned. It is the general locations of missing summoning scrolls as far as my clan can tell. We have followed rumors as best we could to find them. You should ask your summons if they will allow other summons for you. They may or they may not, depending on the summons, as some summons are more arrogant than others. You must get permission from your main summons first, as they will dictate what summons you will be allowed to have. Pakin told Tsunade, who just nodded and took the scroll, stuffing it in between her massive breasts. Good luck, we are rooting for Naruto, and if you can get Kakashi to get off his lazy butt, it would be much appreciated. Poor Kiba has had to do a lot, and his sister and the doctors told Kakashi that he shouldn't be going out of his room for at least a week or more. Kakashi-sensei, I don't feel so good. I know Hinata-chan and Naruto were here, but I think I need to go back to the hospital. Kiba stammered out just before he collapsed in the arms of an Anbu with a sparrow mask. What are you doing having an injured genin coming with you searching for your own student Kakashi? Wolf asked Kakashi, who just shrugged. You realize Sume will skin you alive and feed you to her dogs for this, don't you? The council told me to take him and we are getting a rank pay for this little search and retrieval. I would also like to tell my student a few things. First, like how he abandoning his comrades and how his teammate Sakura feels right now and how Sasuke is going to make a full recovery. Kakashi yelled to no one in particular. So the traitor will be well for his trial? That is good news. As for Uzumaki-san, I think Tsunade-sama and Jiraiya-sama had him set to do light training and rest. Wolf commented. Well, the council is looking for him and wants to talk to him about what happened at the Valley of the End. Kakashi responded. I thought everyone filed a report about it. Wolf retorted. Well, the council thinks Naruto is lying. Kakashi bluntly stated. Naruto nearly rose up, only Hinata's hand squeezing his stopped him from doing anything. She shook her head as she saw his anger rise. I am sure Kurenai-san will not be happy with you taking her student and injuring him more. Take him back to the village and you can restart your search when you get back. Wolf nearly ordered. I am sure Kurenai-san might even go as far as to either castrate you or burn your book collection if you don't get Kiba-san some medical help. Wolf pointed out as Kakashi's face lost all color. Kakashi grabbed Kiba and Akamaru and turned back towards Konoha. Pakin, come on, we need to get these two back to the village. This isn't as far as they could have gone in a single day. Kakashi yelled as he jumped up into the trees and headed back towards Konoha. See what I have to deal with? Pakin grumbled quietly as Shizune and Tsunade both giggled at Pakin's predicament. I'm coming, oh great copy ninja. Pakin yelled sarcastically as he also went back towards Konoha. 5 minutes after Kakashi left, the Anbu searched the immediate area and found no one. All clear, Hokage-sama. Kakashi has headed back towards Konoha. Do you wish us to escort you for another day? We would be honored. As Naruto-sama is still injured, we can help you in transporting him closer to your final destination. Wolf stated as he bowed. Naruto looked at Tsunade quizzically. What did he mean by calling me Naruto-sama? No one has ever called me that before. Tsunade smiled. You were in my office the other night, weren't you, Wolf? Tsunade asked with a raised eyebrow. What all do you know? Wolf stood but remained in a bow. Group spread and maintain a safety perimeter. Wolf ordered as the others spread left the clearing after putting out the fire. He waited until the others were out of hearing range and then Tsunade allowed him to speak. Tsunade-sama wrote up the clan adoption papers for Naruto-sama to become part of the Senju clan. Wolf stated as Hinata gasped at this revelation. Tsunade-sama also set forth several edicts. I will not mention them as they have to do with items that Shizune-chan has in her possession and other matters military. I watched you until you left at 4 this morning to get a couple hours of sleep. I also got a couple hours of sleep and having set my squad and I as your escort for the day. We are loyal to you and will do anything you ask, Tsunade-sama. Tsunade smiled then laughed at her carelessness. Well, Wolf, it looks like you are going to escort us to the northwest as we are headed towards the Wave Country and might need some guards for part of the trip. Naruto, can you create some clones and have them transform into each of us? I want you to send them in some other direction? Tsunade asked. Naruto nodded and crossed his fingers, created 12 clones. You have your orders, Hinata-chan. You can look at them and see what I do for the Henge Jutsu. Naruto said as Hinata activated her Byakugan. 3 of them changed into Tsunade, another 3 of them changed into Shizune and another 3 of them changed into Hinata. You okay, boss? You don't look so good. One of the Naruto clones asked Naruto as he staggered into Hinata's waiting arms. Just go now and lay down a trail anyone could follow, even Teme. Naruto teased as the clones took off, each in groups of 4, heading north, east, southeast and southwest towards Suna. Wolf stood. We will cover your tracks, Tsunade-sama. Tsunade helped Naruto up onto her back. Happy birthday, Naruto-kun. You are now my cousin by edict of the Hokage. Now you can say you have family, me. Tsunade stated happily. Thanks, Ba-chan. Wait, now what do I call you now that you are my cousin and not just some old hag? Naruto asked as he laid his head on Tsunade's back. Tsunade smiled. You can call me Oba-san or refer to me as your aunt. Does that sound okay with you? Yeah, sure. Naruto slurred out as he fell asleep on her back. That was very kind, Tsunade-sama, letting Naruto-kun into your clan. Hinata stated proudly. Not really, he needed a nice birthday gift. He can even keep his name if he likes. And you can refer to me as Shisho, or Master. As you both are now my new apprentices. When he wakes up we will need to find a place to let him rest so that he will be guarded and not have too many interruptions. The Anbu will hide our trail effective enough, but if Kakashi comes it might be harder to hide our trail. Poor Kiba, I am sure I distinctly ordered that he was not to leave the hospital before the end of the week. The group of 4 left the area towards Wave Country as the Anbu group followed and covered their trail. They made it about 3/4 the way to Wave before deciding to find a place to rest. Off the trail about a mile they found a concrete bunker-like building. The Anbu entered the structure, returned about 20 minutes later, and asked the Hokage to come to the side for a discussion. Hokage-sama, the building is safe enough for habitation on the short term. But we found that this place was one of Orochimaru's labs, and there still has some experiments that are still going. You might want to take a look. Wolf explained. Tsunade and Wolf walked into the building. Shizune and the rest of you stay out here for a little bit. Tsunade ordered as she laid Naruto on a soft mat of moss near the entrance. Tsunade entered the building and was at once in awe and revolted by what she saw. Long-dead experiments were held in large glass tubes the size that would hold a human or at least what was left of one. Several held the remains of humans in them, looking like grotesque animals in containers ready for dissection. As they explored the complex they found the mess hall, the infirmary and the sleeping quarters were all close together but away from the experiment containers. There was an operation hall, also. If it weren't for Orochimaru's hands on this complex it would be a great base of operations with lots of things that would help the group be able to start off in becoming the independent shinobi she wanted. As she nearly finished her check of the facility she noticed a few tanks that still had power going to them and what appeared to be alive, if not having stasis subjects in them. She looked at the tanks and realized that there were actual subjects in the tanks and they were alive. She and Wolf pulled the subjects out of their tanks and surveyed them. There were 3 in total, all of them female. They varied in age from about 17 to about 10 years old. One was covered in fine scales but also was the youngest. The second appeared to be about 13 and appeared to have had experiments run on her. The last and oldest appeared to be a malnourished 17-year-old girl with dark hair and dark eyes. They were all put in rooms in the infirmary. Hinata chose to sleep in the same infirmary bed as Naruto when they were at last brought into the facility. Tsunade spent the early part of the night up going over all the documents they had found in the facility. It apparently was both a breeding factory and a gene splicing operations center. It was abandoned because Orochimaru did not have the resources to keep the facility going outside of the land of rice. Shizune kept an eye on the new patients as they recovered from their long slumber. The Anbu kept guard outside the facility for the night. Let's see, bloodline theft and breeding. What were you up to, Orochimaru? Tsunade spoke as she continued to read the research notes. This facility was abandoned almost 6 months ago and the research was just left here. There were 5 subjects when they left, 2 males and 3 females. Tsunade pondered as she continued to think out loud. The oldest female is an Uchiha who was the basis for proving that Uchiha would be more viable candidates for the curse seal. She was not marked but left for breeding purposes if he decided to come back. Sounds like the Teme. Not really worried if he comes back for an experiment. Naruto stated as he startled Tsunade out of her thoughts. Naruto was breathing hard and leaning against the door. What are you doing out of bed, young man? Tsunade inquired with a soft, almost loving tone. Well, Obasan, the nurses here didn't seem to answer at the nurses' station. Sort of reminds me of home. Naruto joked as Tsunade chucked at his comment. Actually, Hinata-chan was too cute to wake and I was hungry so I thought I would get some food. Lo and behold, I find I am in a bunker in the infirmary. So how do I find the mess hall to get something to eat? Tsunade chuckled as she got up, grabbed Naruto and helped him onto a couch in the office. Both turned as they heard running down the hall. Tsunade Shisho. Tsunade Shisho. Naruto-kun is missing. Please tell me you know where he is. Hinata pleaded, almost in tears, as she ran in the doorway. Easy, Hinata, he is right here. He did not want to wake you as he thought you were too cute to wake. Tsunade teased as Hinata went from angry to blushing in a heartbeat. Why don't you keep him company and do some reading while I get you both a snack? I'll make it a meal in his case. Tsunade snidely chided at Naruto's appetite. Hey, that wasn't nice, Obachan. Naruto poked fun back at Tsunade. Grandma, is it? I am your physician and your sensei. Now read the book while I get you some food. Tsunade ordered sternly as both Naruto and Hinata nodded in agreement. Tsunade left with a smile on her lips as she headed to the mess hall. Hinata continued to read until she had finished the chapter and then looked at Naruto, who was still only a few pages into the chapter she had just read. She watched his eyes keep on running over the same text over and over again. She also noticed his aggravation increasing with each pass. Naruto-kun, is everything okay? Hinata whispered to Naruto. Naruto looked almost lost when he turned to look in Hinata's eyes. What is it, Naruto-kun? Naruto looked almost in tears, as his eyes showed fear and worry. I don't get it, Naruto whispered under his breath. Hinata put her hand on his back, gently rubbing it, trying to take the fear away. What don't you get, Naruto-kun? Tell me and I might be able to help you. Hinata said with all the conviction she could muster. I can't get this paragraph. I can read most of the words but not all, and even when I can read them, I can't understand them. Naruto blurted out. He then dropped the book and brought his hands up to his face. I really am an idiot. Naruto shouted to no one in particular as he wept into his hands. Hinata pulled Naruto gently into her shoulder so that he could cry and be comforted. It is okay, Naruto-kun, it isn't your fault. Hinata continued to gently rub his back. But, Naruto tried to counter her argument. Shish, Naruto-kun, it's okay, I'm here for you. Hinata continued, trying to comfort him. Did the academy let you use a dictionary, Naruto? Did they actually teach you anything? Tsunade asked with a tray full of food in her hands as she walked into the room. Naruto shook his head while it was still in the crook of Hinata's neck. Poor Naruto-kun, Hinata exclaimed. Yes, poor Naruto-kun. Those teams, they sabotaged his learning. I know he can write at least at the most basic levels. This means more work for us to do to get him where he should be. Naruto, you can skip the reading for tonight. Eat something and go back to bed and rest. After I get some rest myself, Shizune and I will come down to your room and work with both of you, especially you, Naruto, but that will be tomorrow. We appear to have a lot of ground to cover that they did not in the academy. If we get back there and you make Hokage, you can fire all the ones who did not help your learning. If not, we can just tell Jiraiya and he can have Ibiki deal with them. Tsunade said as her ire rose. Naruto, Hinata, I want you guys to eat and then go back to bed. I have some paperwork to go over before we all go to bed. Naruto lifted his head off Hinata's shoulder and smiled at her. Thanks, Hinata-chan. Naruto? Tsunade questioned as Naruto looked at her, acknowledging her call to him. I would like to test you for Kekkei Genkei if you will let me. I have an idea and would like to test on you, and then if I am correct I am going to ask you a special question. Tsunade smiled warmly. This sent a shiver down his spine as he just nodded. Hey Obasan? Naruto called as he cleared his mouth of food. Yes, Naruto-kun, what do you need? Tsunade asked as she continued to read the reports on the desk. You mentioned breeding purposes and Uchiha in the same sentence. What were you talking about? Naruto asked. Tsunade sighed. Well, I was talking about the 3 patients that Orochimaru abandoned here. One of them is an Uchiha, she is 17. Orochimaru planned to use her to make baby Uchiha. I have not figured out why he left her here, as all 3 nearly died from neglect. That's terrible, Tsunade Shisho. That is what Cloud might have planned for me if their attempt to abduct me had succeeded. Hinata stated as she continued to eat her snack. Naruto paled. Why would you use women to just make babies? Hinata giggled as Naruto's statement and Tsunade burst out laughing. What? Naruto asked innocently. Did you miss out on the sex education course? Tsunade asked Naruto. Well, I was able to sneak in after the course and look at the books, but I was caught after I was able to learn about the female organ placement in and on the female body. There was a lot I didn't understand. Also, the teacher told me, don't worry, demon, you will never need what was in this course anyway. Tsunade and Hinata were appalled at the brazen approach the teachers had towards Naruto's education. Tsunade opened a book and flipped through some pages pointed to a picture. What is that? Naruto looked at the picture and saw where she was pointing. That is the uterus. Tsunade moved her finger. The vagina. Again Tsunade moved her finger. That would be the right ovary. Well, you have a handle on at least some of the plumbing. What are the purposes of each of the organs I pointed to? Tsunade asked as Hinata turned as red as a tomato. Naruto shook his head. I don't have a clue. Tsunade slapped her head and then shook it. I might just put out a call to Anko to teach you. If Hinata doesn't mind. What? Naruto screamed and then coughed. Why would you want that crazy lady to teach me anything? Especially anything doing with female internal organs? Naruto asked with fear etched in his face. Tsunade laughed. Naruto, do you know where babies come from? Yeah, the hospital. Naruto replied confidently as Hinata giggled yet again. What? Well, they do. Yes, silly, but she was not asking where they're born. She is asking if you know how they're made. Hinata said as her blush deepened. Nope, not a clue. Naruto replied with a huge grin. Tsunade slumped down in her chair and shook her head. The lengths they went to alienate you. I swear if we return I am going to kill some of them. Thus began Naruto's introduction to sex education. Afterwards Naruto had a redder face than Hinata. When Hinata walked Naruto back to his bed and he was somewhat fearful of the kunoichi. Why, you don't plan on doing that to me right now, do you, Hinata-chan? Naruto asked with fear in his eyes. Hinata placed her hand upon her mouth and shook her head. No, Naruto-kun. Hinata blushed as she thought about it. But, someday, Naruto-kun, I would like to when we are older and possibly married. Naruto sighed in relief. I guess that would work. I am not ready to have kids. Also, it sounds painful to be a girl. From what I hear it only hurts the first time, but I would still prefer to wait. I love you and will wait for when you are ready, Naruto-kun. Hinata reassured Naruto as she set him on the bed. Just because I sleep with you does not mean I am going to have sex with you, at least not yet. I like sleeping next to you because I love you and because you need the companionship. If we decide later to progress our relationship to that level, then it will happen. Hinata explained to Naruto as she took off her shirt and put on a nightgown. Hinata, if you don't mind me saying this, you are nearly as large at my sexy jutsu. Naruto stated with a smile. Only afterwards did he realize what he had said and covered his head. I'm sorry, Hinata-chan. Hinata blushed then sighed. Naruto-kun, do you like them bigger? Naruto eased out of his defensive posture. You mean you are not going to hit me for what I said? Hinata shook her head. No, Naruto-kun, I was just asking if you had a preference for breast sizes. I have always felt self-conscious about my appearance and my large size for my age. Most Hyuga women were smaller than I am when they were my age. So I don't feel like I am pretty according to clan traditions. Hinata said as she lowered her head. Naruto lifted her face by her chin and smiled. The size does not matter to me. I will explain what initially attracted me to Sakura and how my feelings for you have been changing over time. Naruto offered as Hinata sat down beside him on the bed. Well, as you know, Sakura has a flat chest, so that is not a deciding factor for me. I saw her when I was younger and she was nice to me, at least at first. She played with me while others did not. When I heard that boys were supposed to like girls, I decided I liked Sakura because she had been nice to me. This carried over through the years, but she was all I knew. So I began to think I loved her because I hoped she would be nice to me again. Things went south when she became fixated on another guy, Sasuke, but I didn't know it at the time. Naruto sighed and continued. Sakura soon after that became increasingly mean to me, but I thought it was something I had done, so I tried my best to do whatever she wanted. You could say that I got used to the hitting and insults. Part of me wanted her to be nice to me again. I longed for it so badly that I didn't care what it took to get her to like me again, I would do it. You could say I had tunnel vision when it came to Sakura. Naruto sighed again as Hinata rubbed his back. You know, she agreed to a date with me the night Teme ran away. She was totally out of it, but it made me so happy that she was giving me attention again that I didn't care. Naruto sighed yet again. I sort of figured I didn't have any chance with her when she came crying to the gates when we left to go get Teme. She begged me to bring him back. It was then that I understood that she loved him and not me. I had little to no chance to have her as a girlfriend and only slight chance to have her as a good friend. Hinata looked into Naruto's eyes, which held such sadness, loneliness, and a slight edge of bitterness. I can tell you that I have absolutely no clue what love is. I never knew what it was like to have a mother or a father. The villagers would either insult me or just turn their backs on me. Hinata embraced Naruto in a gentle hug. Oh, Naruto-kun, it is okay. I am here for you. Naruto sniffled and chuckled slightly. That brings me to you, the one I overlooked. I am truly sorry that I didn't see you sooner. I sort of get hard-headed when I want something and ignore anything else till I get what I am after. In this case we might have gotten what we were after sooner rather than later. I am sorry that I hurt you by not acknowledging your affection for me. Naruto tightened his embrace. I am so sorry. Hinata shook her head into Naruto's shoulder. It is okay Naruto-kun. I was not brave enough to talk to you and you were blinded by your need to be seen. It was my fault by not being strong enough to come forward and speak to you. Citrus warning. Suddenly, Naruto got a look of confusion and curiosity on his face, while his blush deepened. Hinata-chan? Oba-san told us about the reproductive system, but she never mentioned why a girl's breasts are considered a part of it. Can you tell me why they are a part of it? He asked. Hinata blushed furiously, but smiled at him. You know that babies are born without teeth, right? She asked, then continued. A woman who has just had a baby, or who is into the later stages of her pregnancy can produce what's called mother's milk from their breasts, which comes out of her nipples. Babies feed off of this milk for the first few months of their lives, and the time in which a mother feeds her baby this way is a part of the process called bonding. Naruto's face changed into one of sadness. I'm guessing I never got the chance to do the whole bonding thing with my mother, he said glumly. Hinata frowned. No, I guess not, she said, then added, that might be why you were one of the shortest people in our class. Bonding and being fed properly by one's mother is essential to growing up properly. Naruto looked to Hinata. Hinata-chan? Is it only possible for a person to bond with their mother? He asked, then said, I don't mean to be perverted, but I kind of want to bond with somebody, and, well, could the two of us bond? Hinata smiled warmly at him. There are many forms of bonding, Naruto-kun. Not all of them are the bonding between a mother and her baby. She explained, then continued, however, I would feel very privileged to give you your first meal of mother's milk. Naruto gave Hinata a confused look. I thought you said a woman can only make this milk when they have a baby. So how are you? He trailed off as Hinata pulled off her nightgown and bra, made a few hand seals, and said, this technique comes in handy when babysitting a newborn, Naruto-kun. I know you've never felt the love of a mother, but I can at least try and give you an example of what it feels like. Naruto blushed as Hinata sat down on the bed next to him and pulled him close. Just suck on one of my nipples, or we can just cuddle if you want. Hinata said. Naruto hesitantly put his mouth over one of her nipples and began sucking. Hinata hummed softly as she rubbed his back and pulled him into her lap. Normally I should be the one in his lap, but it would be too difficult to do this if that were how we were positioned. She thought to herself, then blushed and asked, does it taste all right? Naruto, without pulling away, nodded slightly. To Hinata's surprise, he was crying if only a little bit. What's wrong, Naruto-kun? She asked, worried. Naruto frowned. I've always dreamt of being held by a woman who could have been my mother, but whenever I wake up from that dream, I feel so empty, he said, then held her and continued. I know you can't be a mother figure to me, but thank you so much for helping me realize what such a thing feels like for real. Hinata smiled. I'm happy too, Naruto-kun. I'm happy to have been able to help you in any way I can, she said, pulling him close and adding, if you ever need something like this again, feel free to ask me. End citrus. That is so sweet. Tsunade's hushed voice carried over to the two young shinobi. They both froze in each other's arms, not sure what to do. Now either you two strip the rest of the way and do the deed or go to sleep. I have things to discuss with both of you tomorrow morning. Your little re-education class on sex and human reproduction put us behind schedule and I need some sleep. So good night, and Naruto, for what it is worth I am sorry things were so bad. If I had known I would have done something sooner. Tsunade's voice trailed off. Naruto put on a huge foxy grin. That is okay Oba-san. That was the past and there is nothing I can do about it. On a brighter note, Hinata-chan here says she loves me. When I figure out what that really means I am going to try to return it to her. Naruto replied as he hugged Hinata and then wiped away the tears from her face he didn't notice she had before. Thank you Naruto-kun. Hinata replied as she returned the hug. Tsunade smiled fondly. Looks to me like you are already on your way to figuring it out, Naruto. Good night, Tsunade said with a wave of her hand. Shizune, we need to talk for a minute then we can go to bed also. Tsunade whispered to Shizune as they left the room Naruto and Hinata were in. Naruto changed into pajamas with frogs on them and his otter with buck-teeth nightcap. Naruto curled up behind Hinata as they fell quickly asleep. Several miles away, two teenage girls in kimonos were lying in a single sleeping bag near a fire. One was blonde and the other had long brown hair. I can tell he's close. We should be able to find him sometime tomorrow. I also know he is with Tsunade and she should be able to help heal you. The blonde exclaimed happily as she snuggled up in front of the brown-haired girl. Tsunade woke up in a good mood. Her discussion with Shizune went well and the patients would be waking in a day or two. Shizune had found the medical supplies for working on patients and they had hooked up the girls with both nutrients and fluids. The hard part would be in getting them back on their feet. She showered and got dressed. Today would be a really interesting day. She then walked into the lab and found the results from the tests she had run last night on Naruto's blood. Tsunade's grin broadened. Hinata thought she was in a dream as she woke. She smelled Naruto so close she could touch him. She then felt a hand move across her stomach, as it both tickled and startled her. She opened her eyes, fear radiating from them as she turned her head and looked at what was in the bed with her. She then saw a mess of spiky blonde hair and sighed heavily as she remembered going to bed with Naruto last night. Naruto slowly opened his beautiful, at least in Hinata's opinion, cerulean eyes and smiled warmly. "Morning, Hinata-chan," Naruto said in a gentle voice. This surprised her as she thought he would shout when he saw her, but he did not, as his greeting was filled with warmth and caring. "Morning, Naruto-kun," Hinata replied, and on a whim she kissed him directly on the lips. It was a little peck, but his eyes went wide in surprise. "Wow, that was unexpected," Naruto exclaimed in surprise. Hinata looked almost hurt. "Why? I told you I love you. Why would it surprise you that I would want to give you a wake-up kiss?" "Sorry, Hinata-chan, I am just not used to waking up to a beautiful girl in my bed and her kissing me as soon as I wake up." Naruto apologized and hung his head in shame. Hinata smiled warmly and used her index finger to lift his chin. "Naruto-kun, I meant what I said and said what I meant. I love you. I will keep saying it until you either believe me or you understand." Hinata gently scolded him and then kissed him deeply. His eyes went wide, then closed like hers did. "Okay, make-out session's over. I have to ask Hinata a question and then ask you a question, so get showered and dressed. And please not at the same time unless you use different bathrooms. I don't need to wake you both up from blood loss," Tsunade said as she turned and left the room. "Meet me in the mess hall, I have your results, Naruto-kun," she called back from down the hallway. "Naruto-kun, you can use this bathroom, I will use the one in the room across the hall," Hinata said as she grabbed some clothes. Naruto's mouth hung open as he got a glimpse of Hinata's clothes, specifically her undergarments, white lace panties. "Sorry, I didn't mean to look." Naruto apologized as his face turned bright red. "If you are to be my boyfriend and eventually my husband, you will eventually see my underwear," Hinata said while she smiled and blushed. She then twirled her panties on her index finger as she left the room, while she swung her hips from side to side. Naruto was completely confused, his jaw was left on the floor. He was not sure how to react. He got the distinct impression that Hinata was trying to make up for lost time and seduce him as quickly as possible. This excited and frightened him. How did he miss this girl? Both beautiful, inside and out, and she really did want a relationship with him. He continued to think hard on what he had seen and tried hard to figure it out. Unknown to him, time had passed without him realizing it. Hinata entered the room, her hair lightly wet, wearing only black pants and a white lace bra. Wait a minute, why doesn't she have a shirt on? Naruto thought as Hinata passed him, giving him a full view of her chest for a second time, except this time with only a lace bra as protection. Naruto's jaw again dropped. "Sorry, Naruto-kun, I felt like show you again. Do you like what you see?" Hinata asked with a devious grin on her face and a blush on her face. Naruto nodded dumbly as Shizune giggled in the doorway. "Naruto-kun, you need to hurry up and get ready for breakfast," Shizune warned. Naruto entered the bathroom and closed the door. Hinata quietly activated her Byakugan and sighed as she watched Naruto shower. "Hinata-chan, are you doing what I think you're doing?" Shizune inquired as Hinata just nodded, smiled, and sighed contently. "Hinata-chan, you need to talk to Tsunade Shisho. Now, Shizune had startled Hinata out of her peeping on Naruto as she shook her head at the young girl, and then Hinata finally headed to the mess hall. For some reason Naruto could not get the sight of Hinata in her bra out or twirling her panties of his mind, as well as the events of last night, and he had been so distracted that he had forgotten to get a towel. He also had a problem, on that he was excited by the thought of Hinata in a bra, or possibly in nothing at all. Wait, bad Naruto, I am not Ero Sennin. Realizing he didn't have a towel, he called out to Hinata for help. Hinata-chan, I need a towel, could you get me one? Shizune chuckled at Naruto having forgotten a towel. She brought one into the bathroom. Here you go Naruto-kun. Shizune? Is that you? Naruto asked. Yes, it is Naruto-kun. Is there anything wrong? Shizune inquired in a worried voice. Well, sort of. Naruto almost sounded embarrassed. What is it Naruto-kun? I am a trained medic and should be able to help. Shizune called into the shower. It won't go down. Naruto blurted out. What won't go down? The water? Shizune asked, more worried. No, that isn't it. What was the word? Tsunade covered it last night, dang it. I can't remember. Naruto replied as his voice almost became frantic. What did you talk about last night, Naruto-kun? Shizune asked as she reached for the curtain and was ready to open it to help Naruto. We covered sex education last night. It won't go down. Naruto, the panic was clear in his voice. Shizune lowered her head and sighed. She believed she knew what was going on. Is this about seeing Hinata-chan scantily clad, Naruto-kun? Shizune inquired. I think so. I am not sure. I can't get her out of my mind. Naruto was panicked and pulled the curtain open. See, it won't go down. Shizune smiled as she looked at his lower reaches. Well Naruto-kun, there are a few ways to get it to go down again. Shizune let her mind slip. Impressive for a 13-year-old. What do I do? I can't go on like this. Naruto holding a towel in his right hand and also pointing to his excited crotch. Shizune blushed. The first thing you need to do is cover up. Naruto blushed and quickly put the towel around his waist. Next, there are few ways to deal with your problem. You can have sex now. I wouldn't advise that as you are not ready for the implications of that just yet. You could have someone relieve you, or you could do it yourself. Naruto looked her with a confused look on his face. We will talk to Hinata-chan and Tsunade Shisho about that one later. Lastly, you can relax, stop thinking about naked girls and put your mind at ease. Thinking of something like Orochimaru, Jiraiya-sama, or something that you find unattractive. That should help with your problem. The last one will fix your problem for now, but it may take some time. I advise you to worry more about the question that Tsunade Shisho has for you and not about making babies with Hinata-chan. Naruto sighed at being told he was okay. Thanks Shizune-chan. Sorry about being nude in front of you. Shizune chuckled. You are fine Naruto-kun. I was just surprised that was your problem, would be so easy to diagnose and solve. But we will still have to talk about this, as you will need to learn a way for it not to be a distraction for you. Naruto stepped out with a bulge in his towel and hugged Shizune. Thanks Shizune-chan. Shizune followed Naruto into the room where she had to catch herself ogling a near child. She needed a boyfriend and soon. As Naruto got dressed, Shizune blushed slightly. Naruto noticed but did not want to bring this up as he was already embarrassed enough showing off his problem to Shizune. Naruto finished getting dressed and left with Shizune to go to the mess hall. They entered only to see Hinata as she glowed bright red and nodded to Tsunade. Tsunade had a bowl of food ready next to Hinata and pointed to it. Have a seat Naruto-oi. I have a difficult question for you and hope you will think about it and not make a snap decision. Also take the question seriously, please. Tsunade stated, but a nervous look was in her eyes. Naruto noticed his fear of rejection. He was confused as to why she would have that. Okay Oba-san, out with it. What are your questions? Naruto asked between bites of his breakfast. His eyes darted between Hinata, Shizune and Tsunade. Tsunade took a deep breath and sighed. Well Naruto, I know you like Hinata-chan here. Tsunade pointed out as Naruto nodded and continued to eat. Tsunade didn't notice as she began to ask her question, but Naruto had begun to take a drink. Naruto, I want you to be the father of my child. Naruto sprayed his drink at the question. He then looked at her like she was completely crazy. Naruto gulped loudly. Right now? What about what Shizune said about not having sex right now, as it wouldn't be good for me? And what about last night discussions? And what will Hinata-chan think of me as her not being the only girl for me? Naruto slammed his head down on the table, hard. Naruto-kun, are you okay? Hinata asked as she rubbed his back. There is more to the question than you having sex. You need to hear her out, Naruto-kun. Naruto banged his head against the table a dozen more times before he looked up at Hinata with a quizzical look on his face. Hinata looked at his forehead as the bruise that was there had already begun to fade. Better, Naruto-kun? Hinata asked gently as her hand intertwined with his. He nodded, sighed, and then looked at Tsunade. Naruto, I am not asking for you to have sex with me. I am reserving that for Hinata, here. Tsunade stated as she pointed at Hinata. I am asking for you donate the components for a baby. Shizune has volunteered to carry the baby. Tsunade saw Naruto begin to ask a question but raised her hand to forestall his possible question. Naruto, I am asking you as there is no one I would rather have raise a child than you. I want to pass on the Mokuton gene. Last night I found out that I did indeed have the gene that my grandfather had. I am asking another member of my clan to help me in producing a child with the gene. Shizune and I believe that it is only active in the males of my family. So I am asking you to help me produce a son or two. There was a reason I made you a cousin instead of my son. For legal reasons, you and I producing a child would be illegal even though we are not related. Tsunade explained until Naruto spoke up with a good question. How do you know we are not related? I know there are a limited number of people in the village who are or were blondes. You being one of them, not to be insulting, but you are old enough to be my grandmother, you know? Naruto stated with a look on his face as if he was trying to be serious, also in an attempt to make sure that Tsunade was not angered. Tsunade smiled and chuckled. You are right, I am old enough to be your grandmother, but I am not. I do know your lineage but cannot tell you just yet. Tsunade again put her hand up. Yes, I know you want to know so that you feel like you were not just abandoned. Just know this, your family loved you, and your pervert godfather still hasn't done enough for you. Tsunade sighed. That said, I want to talk to you about being the father of my child or children. I am not asking for you to do this yet. We want you to grow a few years older first, then you will be ready to both produce a strong child and better able to be a suitable father. You are young and I know this is a lot to ask of you, but if you do this the Senju clan can live again and you will have the status and ranking if returned to Konoha to be able to better deal with the council. So aren't you nearly at an age where you will not be able to produce, what are those again? Eggs, yeah, eggs. Aren't you at the age where you are not able to produce eggs anymore? Naruto asked with a curious look on his face. Very good, Naruto-kun. I am impressed that you did listen to your lessons last night. To answer your question, yes, I am nearly at a stage in life where I can no longer produce eggs for having children. Also, though I will deny it if you tell anyone, I should not carry a child as it would be hard on both the baby and myself. That is why Shizune here has agreed to carry a couple of fertilized eggs to term for us, that is if you agree. Tsunade stated but looked as if she was pleading for Naruto to say yes. Okay Oba-san, I agree, but as long as Hinata-chan agrees to it. Naruto bluntly replied. Oh, she likes the idea. She also has offered to help with sperm collection. Tsunade replied teasingly with a devious grin. On that subject, Hinata-chan was spying on our Naruto-kun in the shower. Shizune pointed out as Hinata blushed up a storm. Hinata turned to Naruto and he noticed a smile and a drop of blood at the edge of her nose. It also seems that Naruto is thinking about Hinata-chan. He seemed to have a problem with his thoughts about Hinata-chan. His body was reacting to Hinata-chan's playful attitude. First the twirling her panties and then entering the room topless with nothing other than a bra. Both caused Naruto to have a rising problem that he was not sure how to deal with. I informed him of the various ways to deal with it, but if Hinata-chan continues to tease him, I am not sure he will be able to control himself in her presence. He might either pass out or become too distracted by his thoughts of her that he will not be able to think straight. Shizune reported as both Naruto and Hinata blushed so red that they would have made tomatoes look pale. I see. Tsunade stated as she smiled and folded her hands in front of her. So Naruto, what are your intentions for Hinata-chan here? I know I like her a lot. I just don't know how I should deal with her. I have had little to interaction on how relationships work. I am afraid I might do or say something that would cause her to be mad at me or want to leave me. Naruto shyly admitted. Hinata gently pulled Naruto into a hug. Naruto-kun, I love you for who you are. You are ignorant at times, but that is one of your endearing qualities. We will of course help you in learning whatever you need to know. As for saying something that will chase me away, I am not sure you could be that cruel, ever. What you have said and how you have said it shows me that you care for me, and you may even be on the track to learning to love me." Hinata placed her finger on his lips to stop him from saying anything. "You have been neglected and spurned by so many. You were never given examples of what to do in certain situations. We will work on that. Know this, Naruto-kun. Even if you do not eventually love me and possibly fall for another woman, I will continue to love you." Hinata reassured Naruto. "Hinata-chan." Naruto began to cry into Hinata's shoulder. "So we let you rebuild both the Senju and Uzumaki clans at once?" Hinata asked as Naruto nodded into her shoulder. Outside, not far from the bunker, a blonde girl and a brunette were stopped by a couple of Anbu. "Halt, what are you doing in this area of the forest?" Bear-masked Anbu asked. "We are here to see my Nisan and Obachan. I mean Tsunade-sama. My friend here is hurt badly and Naruto Nisan would like to make sure that our friend survives. If you could take us to him, it would be great." The blonde replied with her biggest smile. "You look like Naruto-sama. Are you saying that you are his sister?" Bear asked. "You could say that. Also tell him I have a couple secrets that he would love to learn." The girl replied with a foxy grin which caused both the Anbu to take notice and pause. "I could swear I have seen Naruto-sama use that grin. She must be related to him." Bear stated as he put his hand to his ear. "Wolf, we have a possible relative to Naruto-sama half a click out, and we are bringing her and a friend in. The second appears to need medical treatment. Please alert Tsunade-sama." Bear stated to no one in particular. He then turned to the girls and spoke. "Okay, follow me, and no funny stuff. No molding chakra or anything. Do I make myself clear?" The girls nodded as they followed Bear down a near non-existent path. Wolf entered the room as Hinata finished a gentle kiss with Naruto and had just wiped his eyes for his eyes. "Tsunade-sama, we have a couple visitors. One is claiming to be Naruto's younger sister. She referred to him as Nisan." Wolf stated as he watched Naruto's response. Naruto looked at him questioningly. "Were there two girls? Was one blonde and the other a brunette?" Naruto inquired. Wolf nodded. "Yes, and the brunette is apparently injured. We are taking them to the infirmary, so if you all will accompany me, we can see to our guests." Everyone stood up and followed Wolf to one of the infirmary rooms. "Here they are," Wolf said as he opened the door to a blonde that looked similar to Naruto's sexy jutsu but appeared to be a bit younger, maybe about 12 years old. Tsunade looked at Naruto, who walked over to the girl and hugged her. "You are still around after all this time? How?" "It is a long story and we will have time, but Tsunade-sama, you need to help him," the girl stated. This caused everyone but Naruto to freeze and look at her like she was crazy. "What? He is a boy. Trust me, I know, as I have had to give him enough sponge baths over the last several months. Can you help him with the hole in his chest? I know Naruto Nisan survived it, but I am not sure how much longer Hiku-kun will survive with that hole in his chest. It has so far not become infected, but I am not sure how long he can hold out without some true medical attention," the girl stated as Tsunade moved over and opened Haku's kimono to see his chest bandaged. She ran a diagnostic jutsu over the boy. "Okay, Naruto, Hinata, Shizune, I need you all to wash up and help me work on your friend. I am not sure how he survived this long like this, but it is a miracle," Tsunade ordered as all three moved to the sink in the room and washed up. Shizune moved beside Haku and smiled at the boy. "How are you feeling?" Haku took a small breath. "I am very tired and quite dizzy." The blonde girl and Tsunade both moved to the sink and washed up. "What are you doing?" Tsunade asked. "I have been taking care of him for the last several months and he is special to me and Nisan," the girl answered. "Is he the boy from the mission Naruto-kun did in the Wave Country?" Tsunade asked as both finished toweling off their hands. "I know Naruto was an only child, so why do you look like him? First things first, fix Haku-kun and then I will answer all your questions," the girl answered as they walked over to Haku. "Okay, be gentle with the wrapping. When you take it off, make sure it isn't frozen to his skin. If needed, warm it up with your hands. I think this is how he was able to survive so long without a left lung. I ran out of blood pills a couple days ago. Also, I have a couple questions for you ladies if you wouldn't mind," the girl inquired. "Sure, but let's get your friend out of danger," Tsunade stated as she smiled warmly to the young girl. They worked for the next half hour to remove the bloody and nearly frozen bandages. Tsunade and Shizune then used Haku's hair to help rebuild Haku's chest. Both were exhausted after being able to heal the chest but not rebuild the missing lung. Okay, your friend is out of danger for now and will be bedridden for a couple weeks as this heals. Naruto, is that what happened when Sasuke hit you with his Chidori? Naruto nodded. I believe so, I am not sure as I only felt it and didn't actually see it. Naruto sadly responded. Hinata gently grabbed his arm and attempted to give him comfort. This was not missed by the girl, who smiled warmly at Hinata's display of affection towards Naruto. So you finally noticed Nissan? I figured it out the day of the Chunin exams. The girl teased Naruto, who just smiled at the girl. Nothing further was said until the group made it to the mess hall. Tsunade-sama, Naruto-sama, Shizune-san, Hinata-sama, we are going back out on patrol. Wolf stated as he and the rest of the Anbu left the building. Tsunade nodded as she and the others slumped into one of the chairs at the table. I must say I am impressed, young lady. You did a fantastic job of keeping him alive all this time. Between your work and his Kekkei Genkei he will live. Tsunade reported as the girl sighed relief. Okay, who are you and why do you call Naruto-kun Nissan? Well, that is easy. I am one of Naruto Nissan's clones. But I think I am a new type of clone. The girl responded, then turned to Naruto and smiled. Got some news for you, Nissan. All those shadow clones are a great learning tools. Naruto wore a confused look on his face. What do you mean? Well, I know what you and your clones know. Whatever your clones know I know. I am figuring that you have not figured that out quite yet, and given how much everyone tell you things and that jerk of a sensei would never tell you about it. What the clones learn you should learn. I know you have too much going on up there to really notice. The girl told Naruto as she tapped his temple. Really? That is so neat. I wish I knew that before. Naruto replied happily. You mean that you don't know the particulars about the jutsu you are almost a specialist at? Tsunade asked. Naruto's only response was to shake his head. Okay, here's the deal. For some odd reason I haven't dispersed like the other clones did. It took a week for them to run through all their chakra even when they ate some food. I only seemed to get weak when I was hungry. I am not sure if I can produce my own chakra, so I have never tried to do anything while I continued to take care of Haku-kun. I was afraid I would disappear if I used chakra, so I wanted to try to get Haku-kun into good enough health, so I could get him to Konoha and to ask you, Tsunade-sama, to heal him at least well enough to either start a clan or even possibly become a shinobi again. Then when I learned from Naruto Nissan's clones how to do the Rasengan, more chakra control and the betrayal of the Teme. You know, even from my female perspective I can't figure out why most of the girls were after him. My only belief is that they wanted to be the girl who would take care of him and heal him. The girl stated with a laugh. Well, what should we call you and what was the question you wanted to ask us girls? Tsunade asked in a tired but happy voice. Well, Haku-kun called me Naruko-chan. I liked it, so I guess you can call me Naruko. As for the question, Naruko blushed. Well, I am bleeding down there and don't know how or why I am bleeding. It started last night and I am sure I am not injured, but I am still bleeding. Shizune, take Naruko-chan and help her with dealing with her first cycle. While you girls are at it, run some diagnostic on her, so we can get down to the bottom of this new clone Naruto created. Tsunade stated as she rose and got some coffee from the kitchen. She also grabbed several sandwiches for the group when the girls returned. Shizune and Naruko returned a little while later, smiling and a relieved look on their faces, and Naruko was wearing a new kimono. Tsunade Shisho, I am here to report that Naruko is a full-fledged girl, complete in every way. I can only guess that she and Naruto-kun share a soul, and thus the reason they both will learn from his shadow clones. She also is able to create her own chakra. She does not have the same capacity that Naruto-kun does, but she still has a large capacity and may be able to tap into the Kyuubi's chakra as well. She told me that she transformed somewhat when Naruto fought Sasuke at the Valley of the End. Not that she changed into a female, but her features became more animalistic and her eyes became red with slits for pupils instead of round. We also checked on Haku-kun and he is doing fine and sleeping right now. We also took care of her feminine problems. Naruto, could you think about your lesson last night and create a clone, then please dismiss the clone so that I don't have to go back over the lesson for Naruko-chan, here? Shizune requested. Naruto created the clone then dismissed it. Naruto looked like she was contemplating something then smiled wryly at Naruto. I see you are confused. We can talk later and I can explain a few things to you so that you can better understand Nissan. Naruto replied happily. So she is real, more so than a shadow clone? Naruto asked. Yes, like I said, she has a solid body, with flowing blood and chakra. Naruto, you have created a new life from yourself. She is in a way your twin sister. I will need to run a couple of blood cultures on both of you to make sure of this, but I am sure that your genetic code is identical except for your Y chromosome and her X chromosome. I am just wondering where she got the extra genetic code to be able to be female. Shizune explained. I don't know either, but when I was given burial detail for Haku and Zabuza, they of course took Sasuke back to the house for medical treatment but left me to deal with the bodies. Kakashi-sensei said I was best for the job because I could create a veritable army to do the work. Kakashi had to deal with medical treatment on Sasuke while I took care of the dead, and Haku's case not so dead bodies. I cut my hand just before I made my shadow clones, and with my anger up there was a spike in Kyuubi chakra just as I made a dozen clones. The thing is all but one was male like me and the last one was Naruto here. They all diligently did the work with me until we got ready to bury Haku. Naruto there checked him for a pulse and found a faint one. We did what we could at the time and bandaged him up and tried to limit the blood loss. I also had the clones catch some food and pick some of the wild herbs. Doing this we were able to bring Haku back to some semblance of health, but not that much. Naruto told his story. Didn't Kakashi ask you where you were during your time after you finished with burying the dead? Tsunade asked. Yeah, but I told him I was training and he bought it. The clones did last longer than I thought they would. I just wondered, can you contact Kyuubi? Naruto inquired. I don't know. But if the spike in chakra at the time of my creation was its doing, then I guess it also had something to do with my creation. Naruto replied. Great, now the fox is messing with my clones. What is it up to? Naruto asked to no one in particular. Maybe we can both contact Kyuubi and find out what it's up to. Take my hand. Naruto took Naruto's hand and they both closed their eyes. Tsunade spoke up as she tried to get the blondes to not go see Kyuubi. Naruto-kun, I don't think that is such a good idea. Naruto? Back in Konoha the council was getting impatient. Jiraiya, where is Tsunade-hime? Kaharu asked. She is the Hokage and has asked that I attend this meeting in her stead. She wanted me to pass out these decrees for the council to go over. Jiraiya stated as he held back a snicker. Kaharu took the stack of papers and smiled at the first one and then passed it along. She blanched at the second and her condition continued to go south as she read each paper. Are these correct? Is she serious? Yes, she is. She was quite specific in finding out the reaction to the council as she has already sent copies to the Fire Daimyo. Jiraiya responded with a serious smile. I will read each in order. I Tsunade Senju hereby declare that Naruto Uzumaki has agreed with much regret and anger to accept exile. Given that I declare that Naruto Uzumaki will be pardoned for all crimes he is accused of past, present and future. Godiami Hokage, I Tsunade Senju hereby declare that Naruto Uzumaki has finished all requirements for becoming part of the Senju clan. He was officially a provisional member when I returned to take up the position of Hokage. Thus any and all attacks upon Naruto Senju Uzumaki are an attack on the Senju clan. Godem Hokage, I Tsunade Senju hereby declare that Naruto Uzumaki shall be a chunin for the village hidden in the leaves. I also announce his retirement from the ranks of Konoha for as long as he is banished. I Tsunade Senju hereby declare that Sasuke Uchiha has willfully with much malice attacked with the full intent to kill a member of the Senju clan and a Konoha shinobi duty bound to return him to said village. Sasuke Uchiha's shinobi status is hereby suspended and cannot be reinstated by the council. He will also serve a minimum of 2 years in prison for his crimes of abandoning the village for a known enemy and for nearly fatally injuring a Konoha shinobi. Godem Hokage, I Tsunade Senju hereby declare that Hinata Hyuga shall become my apprentice. Godem Hokage, I Tsunade Senju hereby declare that Jiraiya is to be my name's successor, unless the banishment is lifted upon Naruto Senju Uzumaki. Godem Hokage, I Tsunade Senju hereby declare that the Sandame's law is still in effect, that Naruto Senju Uzumaki's condition shall not be known by the younger generation. I have also upped the punishment from interrogation to also include a minimum of 1 year imprisonment. Anyone from the council that willingly discloses this information shall be put to death as a traitor. Godem Hokage. That is it for today. I hope you loved this as much as I have. Jiraiya stated with mirth in his voice. You can't be serious about this? Why would Tsunade-sama want for that demon to become part of her prestigious clan? The Haruno civilian representative asked. Well, have you ever taken any time to meet and talk to the Gaki? Jiraiya asked. No, it is on my daughter's team, and that is more than I can stand. I am glad he is gone. The Haruno replied with much venom in his voice. The Gaki has a way with most people if they just take the time to get to know him. He is not what you think he is. He is much, much more. He is even my apprentice. And before you idiot go running your mouths, listen for a minute. He learned the Rasengan in a month, summoning a boss in less than a month, and the Shadow Clone in only a few hours. Jiraiya explained. That is because he is the demon. The Haruno representative exclaimed. Jiraiya was upon the man in an instant, and raised him by the collar. Are you an expert in seals? The man shook his head to Jiraiya's question. Well, I am. And your precious Uchiha is under the influence of both his own psychosis and has a seal upon him left by my former teammate, Orochimaru. This caused several gasps and flared killing intent from the clan heads. I have examined the seal on Naruto and it is fine, no thanks to Orochimaru, as he had placed a seal over the original during the Chunin exams. I was able to remove it, and the Gaki was able to beat others with his chakra in a mess in the preliminaries. I dare you to beat anyone with your chakra all messed up. I am sorry Sume, but he was able to beat Kiba Inuzuka without access to the majority of his chakra, and he was in quite a bit of pain also, so if you believe he is still the demon, then I will allow your stupidity. Also, I would like to take the civilian council to task for having Kakashi take my injured son on a trip looking for Naruto Senju Uzumaki. I want it put in the record that I and my clan are very mad with the council and may join Naruto in his exile. Sume warned. Little do they know that I sent off Hana to find the boy and see what help we can offer to him. That is enough Sumeheim. We are here to ask Jiraiya why Tsunadeheim is not here. Homura stated. Why do you old farts not call her by her proper title but by her name? Have you no respect for the office she holds? Jiraiya angrily asked. We respect the Hokage and she has up to this point been an adequate one. I am little worried by her decrees about Sasuke though and taking Uzumaki into her clan without permission of the council. Kaharu stated in an annoyed voice. What business is it what the clans do? The council has little to no authority over clan affairs. Hiyashi stated in a slight angered tone. Enough, Hiyashi-san, you will show respect to the elders on the council. Homura yelled angrily. The bulk of the council has come to a couple of decisions. Kaharu started. First, Sasuke Uchiha will become the apprentice of Jiraiya. Jiraiya shook his head with a smirk on his face. Second, to bind Sasuke to the village he will be married to several girls, yes, arranged marriages. This caused the clan heads to perk up, especially ones with daughters. Sasuke Uchiha is hereby engaged to Sakura Haruno, Ino Yamanaka, Hinata Hyuga, Hana Inuzuka, Mizu Hitugawa and finally Yakumo Kurama. This caused all the clan heads to stand and begin yelling their protests. Finally Jiraiya was able to bring the group under control. I think the council has overstepped its bounds. Other than the Hitugawa and Haruno girl, all are either in the heirs of their respective clans. Tying a traitor like Sasuke to all those girls will allow him to have a dagger to the throat of the village. This is not acceptable move from the council. Tsunade and I will take this up with the Fire Daimyo. Jiraiya stated as his anger began to boil over. I would rather have my daughter married to the exiled boy than the much-hated Uchiha. Hiyashi shouted in. Hiyashi, again you are out of line. Homura retorted. Out of line? How can I be out of line when you propose to put the whole of the Hyuga under the banner of a traitor who only wants for power and nothing else? Hiyashi demanded. He is last member of one of the founding clans of this village. Danzo spoke up. As are the Hyuga, and much bad blood still exists between the two clans. Hiyashi retorted. This would be a way of healing that bad blood, Hiyashi-san. Kaharu replied. Not if my daughter is after another. She has shown no inclination to the traitor. She has shown apathy if not actual anger for what he has done to Uzumaki-san. Hiyashi replied. Also Hana would not be happy with the traitor for what Kiba went through on his mission to retrieve the traitor. Sume added her arguments to Hiyashi's against Sasuke. The Akamichi are also angered at the Uchiha, specifically Sasuke. Shuza stated as he slammed his hand on the table. The Yamanaka as allies of the Akamichi and Nara also add their protest to this situation. As I can see it, the council is pitting the clans against the civilians. Sure, there are a lot of civilian families that have shinobi in their ranks, but would the village force the established clans to either leave or have their daughters married off to a traitor? Inoichi asked pointedly. We are not asking the clans to pick between their daughters and the village. The clans should accept the wisdom of the council. Homura stated almost pompously. Wisdom, is that what you call it, in tying a traitor to the village? Use someone else's children, Hiyashi stated, and was seconded by the other clan leaders. Actually, I fear for Yakumo-sama, she would not do well with Sasuke-san. I would also fear for any children that were produced as Sasuke-san does not seem balanced and might neglect his possible children for other things that are of his interest. I also call into question his intention of rebuilding the clan here in Konoha, as he has shown little interest in females at all. Yakumo-sama isn't even a shinobi, which from what I have heard is a requirement of the Uchiha. The Kurama clan will not be party to causing further anguish to Yakumo-sama. There will be no marriage between Sasuke Uchiha and Yakumo Kurama. That is our clan's final decision, the council be damned. The Kurama representative stated. I am sure you can get the Haruno girl agree to this, as she is currently under arrest for assaulting a patient in the care of medical staff and a fellow shinobi. But I am sure she would be thrilled to hear she is betrothed to the Uchiha. Jiraiya stated. As for taking the traitor on as an apprentice, I will talk to Gamabunta, but I am sure he will say no. Gamabunta has no say in this. Kaharu replied. Actually, for him to become my apprentice he will have to do hard work, and there really isn't the Uchiha style. He will want it all handed to him, and I just can't train anyone like that. They have to work for it. So I have to decline on the privilege to train Sasuke Teme. Jiraiya stated in confrontational fashion. Why did you refer to Sasuke-sama as a Teme? The Haruno representative inquired. He attempted to kill my disciple and he has been touched by Orochimaru. I will not train a boy who is evil enough to tell someone they are a friend and then tell them that they have to kill them for power. That is not going to happen. And if this council forces me to train him, he will meet up with a training accident. But I don't have to worry about that, as he is a suspended shinobi. Jiraiya said with a huge grin. Suddenly the door opens and Sasuke Uchiha walks into the room wearing pajamas and a bathrobe with his Sharingan activated. You will train me, Jiraiya? Sasuke states as his guards moved with him. Suddenly, the door opened and Sasuke Uchiha walked into the room wearing a hospital gown under a bathrobe and wielding his Sharingan. You will train me, Jiraiya? Sasuke stated as his guards moved with him. I will not, and your little Sharingan trick will not work on me. But if you don't believe me, let's go outside and see what Gamabunta has to say. Jiraiya replied with a wry smile. The whole council, Sasuke, his escort, and Jiraiya all went outside to the top of the Hokage tower. Jiraiya bit his finger, rubbed the blood on his left hand and then made several hand signs. Summoning jutsu. A huge orange toad with a scar on his left eye appeared next to the Hokage tower. Jiraiya, what do you want, you lecherous old man? Gamabunta demanded. Well, Gamabunta, Sasuke Teme. Jiraiya's comment caused Sasuke to scowl at him. Wants me to make him my apprentice, what do you say? Oh, and the council ordered it to be so. Jiraiya added. Come here, boy, let me see you. Gamabunta demanded. Sasuke walked to the edge of the tower and looked directly into Gamabunta's eyes. You will become my summons. Sasuke stated bluntly. Gamabunta laughed hard and then became very serious. You attacked and attempted to kill my favorite Gaki. You think any of the toad summons would like you? Bah! I should just lop off your head now to rid the world of your kind. Your kind has been nothing but trouble. Please, Gamabunta, do not disrespect Uchiha-sama. The Haruno representative pleaded. I do not need your prattling. You will do as I say. Sasuke yelled as his Sharingan began to spin. Gamabunta froze, then his eyes appeared to glaze over. Summons are special. Gamabunta droned. His eyes then appeared to change back to a jovial attitude. Your genjutsu was not strong enough to capture me, boy, and even if it was, I would sooner kill you than become your summons. The Toad Elders have decreed that if Konoha demanded we serve Sasuke Uchiha, then we would dissolve our relationship with Konoha, other than Jiraiya and Naruto. We shall therefore become a family summons only for the Jiraiya and Naruto. So the council can shove their demands. For this worm is not worthy of becoming one who will summon toads. I am also sure that the slugs will agree with the toads. So do not push this point again. Summoning is a matter of trust, and we do not trust Sasuke Uchiha. His use of a genjutsu on me was even more proof of his unworthiness. Now I am going to inform Naruto of this little development. Gamabunta stated and then looked at the council. You know who you are and what you have done. He was supposed to be the hero of Konoha, but you shunned him. For this, the toads will teach Naruto to the best of our abilities. And take that snake-tainted worm back to prison where he belongs. Hey, Sasuke yelled. You can't just turn away from me and turn me down. Gamabunta brought his scared eye up to Sasuke's level. The eye was as big as Sasuke. Oh really? The Gaki earned my respect. You, on the other hand, feel you deserve my respect. What have you done to earn my respect? You attacked a friend of mine. You attempted to use genjutsu to get your way, and now you demand that I acquiesce to your demands. That is your third strike, Teme. I am out of here, Jiraiya. Gamabunta disappeared in a cloud of smoke. You will let me sign the contract now. Sasuke demanded. The council heard a window open and someone came up to the roof. It was Tsunade. What is going on, Jiraiya? Tsunade demanded. And what is Sasuke doing out the high security wing of the hospital? Well, apparently the council in its infinite wisdom decided to let Sasuke out for a friendly stroll. They then have the wisdom to demand that I have Sasuke sign the Toad Summoning Scroll and train him. Jiraiya replied. Tsunade got a tick mark on her temple. I had specifically told you to deal with the council for me. Are you saying that they aren't too much for you and that I need to deal with them? Tsunade demanded as she stared down the council. Even better. The elders are just referring to you as Tsunade Hime instead of Hokage. Jiraiya jabbed at the elders. The tick mark grew even larger. What? I don't mind you referring to me like that in private, but in council chambers you will respect my rank as Hokage. Do I make myself clear? Tsunade demanded. The council is disbanded for the rest of the day. Hiashi, Sume, and Jiraiya, come to my office now. Tsunade demanded as she jumped back down to her office window. The council left in a huff, while the three took the stairs down to Tsunade's office. When the three entered the office, Tsunade was doing paperwork and looked rather pissed. Hiashi activated his Byakugan and then nodded as a single Anbu left the corner of the office and closed the door. Do you think they bought it? Hiashi asked to the assembled group. I hope so, and I'm glad Naruto helped teach me that special henge so I could copy Tsunade and fool the council. Jiraiya replied. Tsunade smiled happily. Well Naruto, we have figured out what is going on with you. You are a clone of Naruto, not a jutsu one either. You are a near-identical twin to Naruto. We are still examining the extra strand that give you an X chromosome instead of a Y, like Naruto, but we are sure that the Kyuubi had something to do with it. So welcome to the Senju clan, Naruto Senju Uzumaki. Naruto smiled happily. Thanks Oba-san. We also found you have several Kekkei Genkei. Like Naruto-kun, you have rapid healing. Unlike him though, yours is slower as it uses your own chakra. The good thing is that your chakra capacity is the same as Naruto's would be if he did not have Kyuubi, which is still quite substantial. You also appear to be still under your family's special henge. Tsunade continues as she read from the report that she and Shizune had done on Naruto and Naruko. Okay, then here I go. Release. Naruko stated as cloud appeared around her. Hinata squealed with delight as the cloud dissipated. Cute. Hinata and Shizune yelled at the same time. Naruto began to snicker as Naruko's face began to sadden. What's wrong with me? Naruko asked sadly. It's alright Nichan, here. Naruto handed her a hand mirror. Naruko's face turned from sad to surprised and then to gleeful. I'm so cute, she screamed as Naruto winced at the sound of his now sister squealing with glee. Naruko had fox ears and a long fox tail, both covered in blonde hair with white tips. Both Naruto and Naruko heard a low chuckle in their minds. Well, she did say that she gave you a present. I guess this is what it is. Naruto commented as he remembered their encounter with the fox. Flashback. Naruto stood next to Naruko holding her hand as they stood before the gates that held the Kyuubi. What do you want, whelp? Oh, I see you brought our daughter. The Kyuubi stated bluntly. Naruto looked totally confused. What do you mean daughter? She looks just like me except for being female. And how is she actually alive instead of a shadow clone? Naruto inquired. And I don't remember having had sex with you at any time. Naruko blushed at Naruto's statement. The Kyuubi turned its head in apparent shame. You don't remember the night we spent together? I am hurt. The Kyuubi stated as if Naruto had actually hurt its feelings. You mean you're a girl? Naruto yelled in complete surprise. The Kyuubi turned its head slightly and nodded. What? Both Naruto and Naruko yelled at the same time. You amuse me, kid. But to answer your question, yes, I am a female, and no, we did not have sex. It might be possible, but only here in your mind. As for our daughter or your sister as you can refer to her, it just happened to be luck that we were able to produce her. The combination of demonic chakra, blood, and a shadow clone, along with a little help from me created Naruko here. I gave her your genetics but also added something to it. You can call it a surprise present from your mother Naruko. The Kyuubi stated with a chuckle. Naruto and Naruko looked at each other in surprise. Now leave me, kits, I need my beauty sleep. The Kyuubi stated as she lay down and began to sleep. Naruto and Naruko woke up back in the mess hall. Well, that was interesting. Naruto commented as Naruko just nodded. Are you two okay? Tsunade asked in a worried voice. Yeah, but who knew the fox was a vixen? Naruto blankly replied. She even called me her daughter. Naruko stated as everyone in the mess hall jaws dropped at both statements. After a few moments of silence, Tsunade spoke. I warned you not to go, but at least you got some useful information. Yeah, other than her being a vixen with a sick sense of humor, she also was responsible for creating Naruko. Naruto stated. How so? Tsunade asked. Well, it appears the combination of some blood, a shadow clone, and some demonic chakra is enough to create what would best be described as a blood clone, if not a full clone of sorts. I am not sure how to describe it, but the Kyuubi teased Naruto about them having sex, too. Naruko stated as Hinata froze then appeared to become depressed. What's wrong, Hinata-chan? Naruto asked, concerned about Hinata. I wanted to be Naruto-kun's first. Hinata said, having a slight fit. The group laughed at Hinata's antics. Relax, Hinata-chan, Naruto could only do that within his mind, so it would be like a dream and would never have happened. Naruko stated as she rubbed Hinata's back in an attempt to comfort her. Naruto and Naruko heard a growl then a laugh in their minds. Both rolled their eyes. I guess she is somewhat possessive of you, Nissan, or should I say dad? Naruko teased Naruto. End flashback. My guess is that Naruko is a physical clone that shares her soul with Naruto. And thus the reason they both can learn from shadow clones they produce. She of course has better chakra control and has learned all of Naruto's skills, so they are both separate sides of the same coin. Tsunade stated. Wolf appeared suddenly. Sorry to disturb you, Hokage-sama, but we have another guest and she wishes to offer her support from the Inuzuka clan to Uzumaki-sama. Naruto looked at Tsunade, who just shrugged her shoulders. Guess it wouldn't hurt to see what she wants. Is it Sume? Tsunade asked as the group got up and headed to the entrance of the facility. No, it is Hana Inuzuka, Hokage-sama. Wolf replied. Naruko-sama, you might want to cover up your accessories, ma'am. Wolf added as the group headed towards the front door. Naruko re-engaged her henge, thus hiding her ears and tail. The group exited the building and saw Hana, 2 dogs and 2 Anbu flanking her, all knelt and bowed before them. I bring greetings from the Inuzuka clan, Naruto-sama. Hana began. I also offer my hand in marriage as an offering to you and your clan. Naruto, not knowing what to do, pulled a Hinata and fainted. Hinata was immediately upon him and gently put his head in her lap. Hana wore a confused look upon her face. What happened? My little cousin is not used to so much positive attention. Tsunade replied as Naruko giggled. Hinata gently brushed her fingers across Naruto's face as they waited for him to wake up. My apologies, Lady Tsunade, for me hurting your cousin. Hana stated and again bowed. Tsunade laughed and gently picked up Naruto. Come on in, Hana. We will talk about this inside, as it looks like it's going to rain. Wolf, how come this place keeps on being found by outsiders? Tsunade asked. I am not sure, but we will try to destroy the trail again and create a new one heading off elsewhere. We will also use scent blockers this time. Wolf replied as he and the other Anbu disappeared. Tsunade gently laid Naruto down on his bed as Hinata pulled the cover up on him and then lay down beside him. So the Inuzuka want you to wed Naruto-kun? Tsunade asked, as they all took seats in various places in the room. Naruto sat at the foot of Naruto's bed and laid a hand on his leg. Hana looked at the blonde girl. Who is she and why does she remind me of Naruto-sama? Hana asked. I am his sister. Naruto answered but put her hand up to stop the next question. It is a long story and we still have a question pending with you. Hana looked at the girl then nodded. Well, sort of. You see, the council members are getting full of themselves, and they appear to want most of the eligible kunoichi around Sasuke Uchiha's age to be betrothed to him. The clans are not pleased and are arguing against it. Hiyashi-sama has already said that he would marry Hinata-san hereof to Naruto-sama before he would have an Uchiha in his family. Hana nodded to Hinata, who beamed at hearing her father at least somewhat approved of her chasing Naruto. So my Nissan is now the most eligible bachelor on the market? Naruto commented then giggled. Looks like Hinata-chan's got competition. Hinata stuck her tongue out at Naruto then hugged Naruto gently. Everyone laughed at the girl's antics. I would of course allow Hinata-san to be the alpha female in the relationship. Hana stated kindly. Well, you see, there are some other complications to add to this mess. Shizune said with a blush. Don't tell me all of you are going to marry him too? Hana replied in shock. No, that isn't it at all. Shizune tried to reassure Hana while she waved her hands in front of her. You see, Naruto-kun has agreed to father a few children with Tsunade-sama, using me as the surrogate mother, in the hopes of bringing back the Mokuton bloodline. Shizune explained. Hana cocked her head. So would that make you wife number 2 or what? Shizune blushed, and this time both Hinata and Tsunade noticed it. I am not sure. Shizune stammered out. Hana shook her head. So Tsunade-sama is going to bank some eggs and then fertilize them later? Tsunade just nodded. I am quite familiar with the procedure as we do that with our dogs on occasion when we have either a strong bitch or male. Are the Inuzuka the only ones? Naruto inquired. No, the Inuzuka are not the only clan that is offering to be betrothed to Naruto-sama. Hana commented as Tsunade raised an eyebrow. Yes, the Kurama also want to offer also. The problem is the heir suffers from being haunted by a demon. And the clan is very powerful with genjutsu. Naruto woke up and looked longingly up at Hinata. What happened, Hinata-chan? You, Naruto-kun, have a lot to think about. Hinata replied as she gently tapped her fingers on his nose. What do you mean, Hinata-chan? Naruto continued to look confused. Well, Naruto-kun, you are now being asked to marry Hana Inuzuka and possibly the heir to the Kurama clan. But first, you have to answer if you will marry the heir to the Hyuga clan. Hinata said boldly. If it will make you happy, Hinata-chan, I will, as you make me happy. Naruto answered as he leaned his head into her hip and closed his eyes contently. The clans will not require an answer right away. Also, the way the council is pushing, several of the clans may desert the village and join you, Naruto-sama. The heads of the Hyuga, Inuzuka, Yamanaka, Akamichi, Nara, and Kurama clans all support you, both Tsunade-sama and Naruto-sama. Hana stated. The Nara have the hardest decision as they have medical, research and animal husbandry facilities that would have to be shut down and moved from Konoha, even though they do support you. Bear appeared with someone behind him and a kunai to his throat. You know, Gaki, I was hired to kill you, but I say fuck it. Want to jump into bed and screw my brains out? Anko stepped out from behind Bear and withdrew her kunai. Naruto's eyes went wide. Why would I want to have sex with a crazy bitch like you? Naruto yelled as he pointed his finger at Anko. Anko, not fazed by the question, just cleaned her fingernails with her kunai. Because, it would be fun, Gaki. Anko wore a devious smile as she looked hungrily at Naruto. See, I told you she could help you with your sex education lessons. Tsunade teased. What, did he not get the lesson? We will have to fix that. Anko stated as she took off her trench coat and began to remove her fishnet shirt. Hinata's eyes went wide then became stone cold. No, mine. Hinata yelled as she leaned over and protectively hugged Naruto. Anko smirked as she was holding her shirt, revealing her breasts to the group. Well then, maybe later, Gaki. You don't know what you missed, but we can find out later. Anko walked out with her trench coat and shirt held over her shoulder and a definite swagger in her walk. Either you get him first or I will. Anko warned as she walked with the Anbu, who just shook his head and showed her a room down the hall. Naruto shook his head. Man, my life is getting too complicated. First, I find the girl I thought I loved hates me for doing what she asked. Then, I find one who loves me for me. I get offered to become a father. Then I'm offered the daughters of several clans. And then to top it off, Psycho Bitch wants to join the club. Naruto exclaimed in frustration. I heard that, Gaki. I will see you tonight, and the blue-haired one can join in too, should be fun. Anko yelled from down the hallway. Naruto and Hinata blushed deeply. You never thought you would have fangirls, did you, Naruto-kun? Tsunade teased. I even think Shizune might be one. Shizune blushed at this. Shadow clones might even make it more fun. Anko yelled again from down the hall. Geez, she only has one thing on her mind, doesn't she? Naruto asked incredulously. Nope, killing or sex, that makes two. Anko said gently from the door entrance. Look, I know you had it rough, kid. I did too. Having Orochimaru as a sensei didn't exactly make for a good impression on the village. Anko said in an almost hurt voice. I use both as tool to deal with the hurt like you use the happy idiot act. Naruto looked at Anko and saw not the psycho woman but another hurt soul like him. I will think about it, but not anytime soon. Naruto replied to her unasked question. Anko immediately perked up. Works for me, and if he has as much stamina in bed that he has outside of it, I will be a happy woman. Naruto blanched at this statement. What? Old enough to kill, means you are old enough to fuck. Anko stated with a smile as she left a blushing Naruto and Hinata, who both considered the implications of Anko's statement. Naruto whispered into Hinata's ear. No way, I can barely handle just one girl. Adding more to the mix would just confuse me. I wanted to be the center of attention, but I am not sure I could handle more than one girlfriend and eventual wife. Naruto explained as Hinata blushed. Hinata leaned in and whispered into his ear. I will make sure you are happy, Naruto-kun. Remember, you do not have to accept any of the offers of marriage. Hinata gulped and then sighed. Not even mine. Naruto turned to her in surprise. Why wouldn't I accept it? Naruto quietly asked. Hinata sighed and smiled gently. We will discuss this later, Naruto-kun. Hinata gently kissed him on the lips and then the forehead. Tsunade noticed the conversation and stood. Hana, I have something to show you and would like your opinion. Naruto, can you accompany us? Anko, take a load off and rest. Naruto-kun and Hinata-chan have some things to discuss. Tsunade left the room with almost everyone in tow. Naruto-kun, rest now, we will talk when we wake up. Hinata gently ordered Naruto as she slipped under the covers with him and snuggled up to him. Both fell quickly asleep. Interesting, I would say either a lizard or a fish hybrid, poor girl. Does she have gill slits? Hana inquired. Not from what we can find. We have even run water over her neck in the off chance they are there. She appears to have fully developed lungs, but the X-rays and MRI scans have revealed no gills. Hinata-chan has examined her and her chakra network is advanced enough that she could work as a genin in the field. Also, the scales do not seem to dry out like you would expect a fish to. Shizune stated as she and Hana went over the report on the patient. Hana moved to the next patient. Female, apparent age 14, several scars and heel marks, no other distinguishing marks. Apparent skin grafts from other donors, possibly from Kekkei Genkai donors. According to Hinata-chan, her chakra network is in shambles, and there's no possibility for recovery, but she could lead a normal life as a civilian. Hana read from the chart as they continued on to the third patient. This one is an interesting case. Female, 17, Uchiha. She was thought to have been lost on a mission before the Uchiha massacre 4 years ago. She was listed as a Chunin at the time. Her chakra network is fine and we believe her Sharingan is fully developed. She is listed as perfect specimen for a breeder in Orochimaru's records by a medic named Karen. She should be waking before the others and we should keep an eye on her for the time being. Shizune commented as she noticed the girl's hand move. Hana, go get Tsunade, I think that she is waking up. Hana quickly left the room. Okay, we will have to wait for your period to be over so that we can give you a full exam. Also, I want you to join Naruto-kun and Hinata-chan in their medical studies. Shall we go check on Haku-kun? Tsunade asked as Naruto blushed and nodded agreement. They entered Haku's room to see his eyes open and smiling at the two that entered his room. "Hello, Naruto-chan. Is this Tsunade-sama?" Tsunade nodded her answer. "It is an honor to meet you, and thank you for healing me. I hope Naruto-kun isn't too put out by me being here in Konoha." Tsunade threw her head back in a hearty laugh. "Son, we are not in Konoha. Naruto-kun was exiled and I decided to go with him. If that village did not appreciate him, then I say to hell with them," Tsunade commented. Haku wore a shocked look on his face. "Naruto-kun is alright, isn't he? For the most part, he was injured and is recovering from wounds received when Sasuke Uchiha ran away from the village. Naruto-kun was the one to bring him back, and was exiled for his troubles," Tsunade replied. Naruto walked over to Haku and hugged him gently, and then she gently kissed him on the cheek. "What was that for?" Haku asked with a blush and a confused look on his face. Naruto looked up and gave her most innocent look she could muster. "Just because I am happy to see you up again. I am happy too, but also a little confused. You are a clone of Naruto and a kiss would mean?" Haku could not quite complete his thought out loud. "Nope, I may be a clone but Naruto-Nisan is a boy and I am most definitely a girl," Naruto replied with a smile and a blush. Haku blushed profusely. "That would mean, that, you saw me?" "Yep, in the nude. Don't worry too much, I promise I will continue to give you gentle sponge baths whenever you like." "Haku-kun?" Naruto said Haku's name seductively as Tsunade laughed. "Now none of that, Naruto. He has just gone through major surgery and is still missing a lung. If we can work on the gene splicing we might be able to rebuild your lung, Haku. Until then you are to take it easy, doctor's orders," Tsunade stated gently. "Now for our love-struck friend." Tsunade indicated she was talking about Naruto, who just blushed. "Nice to know that you are actually female and your feeling were not wrong or just different from Naruto-kun's." Haku looked confused as he looked between the two females. "Feelings? What feelings are you talking about? Naruto at least has a crush on you, Haku. Her heart is in your hands so don't break it," Tsunade both warned and teased Haku. Haku blushed and then looked at Naruto with gently almost loving eyes. "How could I break the heart of a girl who took such loving care of me for so long?" He lifted his left arm and wrapped around Naruto as she blushed and returned the hug. "Naruto, he has to know," Tsunade stated impatiently. Naruto wore a sad puppy look on her face. "No, no what?" Haku asked. "Please don't be afraid, Haku-kun," Naruto pleaded with Haku as he nodded. Naruto released the hedge showing her tail and ears. Haku laughed gently at Naruto who began to pout. "Is that what you were worried about? Cute ears, and a tail? Wait a second, a tail? What is going on?" Haku asked, worried for Naruto's health. Tsunade sighed as she sat down in a chair next to the bed. "This all comes back to Naruto and his guest." "Guest?" Haku asked as he again hugged Naruto. "Yes, Naruto is a Jinchuriki, the Jinchuriki of the nine-tailed demon Kyuubi. Well, as you know, Naruto has a way with shadow clones. Mix that with some of Naruto's blood, Kyuubi's chakra, and a demon that wants to add some chaos into the world, and you get Naruto. She is truly a near-human female, and, no, I am not trying to be insulting. She has a small part of her genetic code that is part demon. She would in some small way qualify as a Han-Yu or half-demon but only has a small amount of demon DNA, that being the genetic code that makes her female as opposed to male. The result is her having those fox-like features. She does not have normal ears but the ones on the top of her head. The tail is connected to the spine and can lie flat on her back. If you are into bloodlines she has a few. One is the fox features which more than likely will be passed down to her children, her large chakra capacity, and regeneration." Tsunade explained the situation carefully. "I have a bloodline too just like Naruto-chan. You do not hold it against me, do you?" Haku asked with a worried look on his face. "No, I don't as I carry the Mokuton bloodline within me. But mine is dormant, as it only shows up in males of my family," Tsunade reassured Haku. Haku sighed in relief as he heard her words. Suddenly Hana ran into the room and looked straight at Naruto. "Okay, now that is different. Tsunade-sama, the Uchiha girl is waking up. Naruto, drop the henge and come along," Hana ordered as she ran back towards the Uchiha's room. Naruto looked at Haku and rolled her eyes. She jumped up, then turned and gently hugged Haku. "I'll be right back," Naruto said seductively, and Haku blushed at her comment. Naruto turned and left with Tsunade. "He is going to be okay, isn't he?" she asked with deep concern in her voice. Tsunade smiled and sighed as they continued to the room they needed to get to. "Yes, he will be okay. I also want both you and him to do the medical training also. I am sure he has good chakra control, and you know that you have less chakra and more control than Naruto, so if you both work on control." Tsunade thought out loud, "Then my lesser chakra might add to his control." Naruto concluded for Tsunade as she nodded agreement. "I am not sure how you liking Haku and him liking Hinata will pan out at this point in time, especially if you share the experiences of shadow clones." Tsunade pondered out loud. Hana commented as Naruto and Tsunade entered the room. "I told you to disengage that henge, Naruto. It isn't a henge, but I can re-engage the other one." Naruto replied as she reverted back to human form. "Oh," was Hana's only response. The girl in the bed opened her eyes slowly. Her face went from serene to fear instantly as she saw the IV in her arm. "I will not be a slave to Orochimaru," she croaked out. "Easy, child," Tsunade replied in a soothing voice. "Orochimaru left you for dead and we saved you. I am Tsunade Senju of the Sannin." The girl visibly relaxed. She then took the glass of water offered by Naruto, who smiled gleefully at the Uchiha girl. "Hi, my name is Naruto. What is yours?" The girl drank the water quickly, then offered the glass to Naruto, who then filled the glass again. "You drink too much and you will have to go pee. That is if you don't already have to," Naruto commented as the girl's eyes went wide. "You need to pee, don't you?" Naruto asked as the girl nodded. "Okay ladies, let's get her to the bathroom." The ladies helped the Uchiha to the bathroom to allow her to relieve herself. Afterwards they helped her back to her bed. "Thank you very much. My name is Ayane Uchiha," Ayane stated weakly. She then looked at Tsunade. "Tsunade? The Tsunade?" Tsunade nodded as she finished tucking Ayane back into her bed. "What do you remember?" Ayane blushed. "Well, I don't remember being this tall, for one. Also, I had just been promoted to Chunin and would soon be put into the police force under Lord Fugaku." Tsunade tensed at that name. "I am sorry, Sannin-sama. Did I offend you with naming my clan head?" "Not really, but he has been dead for a few years now, about 4 now." Tsunade lied. "I see, did any of my clan survive?" Ayane inquired. "I was 12 last time I remember, but cousin Itachi was training me some, but his little annoyance of a brother would always get in our way of talking. Itachi told me that we might be married if Wade died 4 years ago?" "Yes, you have been a captive of Orochimaru for nearly 5 years. We found you here and brought you out of hibernation, so to speak. Your muscles have atrophied, and your mind is about 5 years behind your body. You are a beautiful girl of 17. Also, there are a few things we need to talk about," Tsunade stated with a serious voice as Ayane nodded. "Your clan was destroyed by one person about 4 years ago. Only one, the murderer, and his brother survived." "Who are they? I will kill them both," Ayane stated with much vigor. "Whoa there, you want to kill Itachi Oi and Sasuke Teme?" Tsunade asked with a smile on her face. "What do you mean Itachi Oi and Sasuke Oi?" Ayane asked, confused, and wondered just what was going on. "Hana, Naruto-chan, will you both please leave us as I have several things that have to be discussed with Ayane here?" Tsunade ordered as both Hana and Naruto bowed and left the room and headed back to check on Haku. Tsunade sat on the bed beside Ayane and took her hand. "What I am going to tell you, does not leave this room, do I make myself clear?" Tsunade told her with her eyes looking very stern. "Sure, Tsunade-sama, I understand." Ayane nodded acknowledgement. "I am, at least for a little bit longer, the Hokage of Konoha. I came across some information that was only known by a few of the council and the Hokage. The elders of Konoha ordered the Uchiha put to the sword for sedition." Tsunade paused as Ayane gasped. The true irony is that they forged the Hokage's orders and had Itachi do the deed. What he didn't know was that the order was not valid, even though he could not bring himself to kill his brother. "Does Itachi-kun live?" Ayane implored. "Yes, he does, and he works for an organization that is bent on hurting my cousin, Naruto." Tsunade stated bluntly. "Do you mean the Kyuubi boy that the rest of the clan hated?" "I know Itachi-kun, I know liked him very much," Ayane asked. Tsunade raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean he liked Naruto-kun? And how do you know about Kyuubi?" Ayane got a distant look in her eyes. Well, Itachi-kun would tell me stories about his job of protecting the village pariah. He used to say that the boy was more than everyone thought he was. He had so much potential. I sort of got to feel sorry for how they treated the boy. As for knowing about the Kyuubi, the whole clan other than Sasuke Dobi was told to either kill the boy or stay away from him, for he had the Kyuubi sealed within him. The Uchiha have a history with Kyuubi. She is the progenitor of our bloodline from our Hyuga ancestors. Ayane covered her mouth as she felt she had spoken too freely. That was what we guessed in the Senju clan. Please continue. Tsunade prodded. Ayane nodded. Itachi told me before I left on the mission that I was captured on, that he loved me. The council had asked for my team to go to the rice country to investigate some missing people for the daimyo there. Ayane's eyes both showed betrayal and admiration as she sighed. So Orochimaru captured you and then put you in a tank to mature. He apparently wanted you for breeding purposes. Oh, and you can find out for yourself if Naruto-kun is as good as Itachi told you. Oh, and thank you for filling in some of the holes in the reports I have. I am guessing that Itachi agreed when he found out that the Fugaku had said that your missing was not reason enough to mount a search operation. The council used that against him so that he would kill the clan. Tsunade's smile softened as she looked at Ayane. You must understand that he was made a traitor when he didn't kill his brother Sasuke. That boy is a thorn in so many people's sides, it is ridiculous. Now please get some rest. I will be down the hall checking on my cousin Naruto-kun. Please allow his sister, Naruko-chan, to help you with meeting him. He has a problem with the Uchiha to some extent and would love to see someone who did not hate him or want to kill him. Also, our little discussion is to be kept in the strictest confidence until I am ready to reveal it to all. Ayane nodded as she laid her head back on the pillow and fell asleep. Tsunade entered Haku's room to find Naruko asleep on Haku's bed, nuzzled up to his right side with his arm wrapped around her, both sleeping contentedly. Guess everyone is somewhat happy. I wonder where Hana went off to. Tsunade thought as she moved between the rooms and checked on the patients. She came upon Naruto's room where Hinata's clothes were on the floor along with Naruto's clothes. She did a quick inventory and found that their underwear was missing from the cluttered clothing that lay strewn around the room. Guess they're getting along just fine. Just as long as they have some clothes on, it should be fine and Hiashi won't kill him. Guess this is so that Anko doesn't bother them. Naruto-kun still has to ask for Hinata's hand first, though I think he won't say no, even though Hinata basically proposed to him. I think I will send a messenger to Hiashi. Tsunade found Hana in the mess hall feeding her dogs. She turned to greet Tsunade with a wave. I am guessing that Naruto-kun is going to turn the heirs of Konoha down on our marriage proposals. Hana commented more than asked. Tsunade chuckled and then sat down beside Hana. I am not so sure about that. One heir might get him at least. Hana sighed and then laughed hard. Yeah, like any of us had a chance with him to begin with. She's a lucky girl. Yes, and no, she never was mean to him and loved him from the start. All that along with timing gave her to him heart and soul. So why did the clans think that Naruto would marry them? Tsunade questioned. Well, Mom guessed that the council would attempt to bind Sasuke Teme to the village by using the Clan Restoration Act and marry him off to the clans with daughters. We talked to those heads and they agreed they would rather have the pariah as a son-in-law that was loyal rather than one from a known family of traitors. Better a loyal pup from an unknown bitch than one that had good breeding but has a habit of biting the hands that feed it. Hana commented. I see what you mean. With my adoption of Naruto into the Senju, Sasuke will be up against the ringer. Tsunade stated with a distant look and a smirk. Huh, the council is plotting to make Sasuke Teme into a breeding factory. I figure they wanted him to sleep with all of us to see if he could produce some variants of the Sharingan. Loyal with the Inuzuka, Byakugan hybrid with Lady Hinata, Mind Walkers with Ino-chan, and Genjutsu experts with Yakumo-chan. I will not have it. Even if Naruto-kun turns us down, I am willing to join your little group and bring the others here. That is if you will have us. Hana said with a pleading look in her eyes. Tsunade looked at Hana and began to contemplate what was going on, the near desertion of Konoha's clans from the village, one small group at a time. Tsunade shook off her weariness at the possibility that Konoha might fall and the destruction it might cause around the shinobi world. She then sighed and began to speak. Listen, Hana. I have no problem with you joining the group, but I also want to have an ear in Konoha. We have a couple more days before Naruto's exile is set and we are out here permanently. I want you to take some documents to Jiraiya for me. When you return, I want you to be my liaison to Konoha until things get really bad. If you need, you can have Sume arrange a marriage within the clan for your protection. For those who can't be protected from the council, I will write up a protection order for them. I also want several people for you to keep in contact with. Tsunade said as she led Hana to her makeshift office. A yell came ringing throughout Naruto's room. Hey kid, wake up. Naruto woke with a start and pulled the sheets with him. He saw an orange and black toad sitting on the sheets before him. Hey kid, get lucky? Naruto looked confused by the question. Gamakichi looked disappointed for a second, then smiled broadly. What happened to the pink-haired banshee? I thought she was your girlfriend. Gamakichi said as he put his left pinky up in the air. Naruto groggily looked around and replied to Gamakichi. Hey Gamakichi, what are you doing here? Naruto noticed he was missing clothing and that Hinata was only in her underwear and bra. He quickly pulled the covers back over Hinata and himself. He did notice he was wearing his boxers and let out a sigh of relief. Naruto's face then wore a look of surprise. What do you mean by saying that the pink-haired banshee was my girlfriend? Well, you seem to like her so much. Gamakichi responded with a smile as if he knew something. Not anymore, that witch beat me while I was in the hospital. Naruto recounted and then smiled a big grin while looking at the sleeping Hinata. I like Hinata-chan better. She loves me and I think I love her too. Gamakichi nodded and smiled. Glad to hear that, kid. I got a message from Pops. Naruto laid back and Hinata snuggled onto his chest and smiled in her sleep. Okay, what does the old toad want? And I also have a question for him too. Well, the Teme demanded to be trained by Ero Sennin. I do like that title. I'm glad you came up with it. But back to the message. Pops says that you and Jiraiya are now the only contract holders of the Toad summoning contract, and it is to become a family contract for the both of you. So what is your question? Gamakichi inquired. I want to know if I can sign other summoning contracts with some of the other summons? Tsunade Obasan wants me to sign the slug contract but wanted me to check with your dad first. Naruto stated. Will do. Gamakichi responded and then disappeared in a puff of smoke. Naruto, Hinata, Naruko, and Haku spent the next few days reading about anatomy. Naruto and Naruko had the hardest times as their learning had been hindered by the teachers at the academy. This caused Hana, Shizune, Haku, and especially Hinata and Tsunade to become very angry at the instructors at the academy. Naruko and Hinata worked on chakra control as Naruto and Haku healed. The other two girls woke up and began to explore. The first room they came upon was Naruto's and seemed to want to stay by his side. Naruto was a little bit disturbed by all the attention he seemed to be getting from the females of the human species. He did make an effort to get to know them though. The youngest was named Hio, and found that she could tease Naruto about his name and he would tease her about her name. Hio of course means dried fish, and one of the meanings of Naruto name was fish cakes. The other girl who would just watch the 10-year-old and the 13-year-old both act like they were 8 was named Chimera. She mostly kept to herself but stayed close to Naruto for some unknown reason. Tsunade suggested that Naruto accepted them as they were so they could be at ease around him. He had a way with people and Tsunade could not explain it. By the end of the week Naruto was nearly at 100% and ready to train. Tsunade suggested a mission. Tsunade took Naruto, Naruko and Hinata as a team to go and check on a missing caravan from the land of honey. The mission went wrong from the start. The team got stuck in what appeared to be a haunted castle. Naruto freaked out on several occasions only to actually figure out that the castle was actually a summons. Using Hinata's Byakugan they located the summoning scroll and made their way up to the scroll. Naruko signed the scroll as Naruto opened a hole for the team to escape. Naruko politely excused the summons. The team was then thanked by the caravan and they would send payment to Wave when they returned home for saving them. The team returned only to find Neji waiting for them at the entrance of the bunker. He informed them that Anko was now declared an independent nin as were Naruto, Hinata, Shizune, Tsunade and the Anbu team. He also informed them that Tsunade had been replaced by Jiraiya as Hokage, much to his annoyance. Tsunade had the group seal up the bunker and then everybody headed to Wave. Thanks to a couple of shadow clones from Naruto's chakra control skyrocketed. On the way to Wave, Naruto was able to finally make a one-handed Rasengan. It did take him 3 whole minutes to do it, but he could finally do it. Hio and Chimera both began to look towards Naruto as a brother, while they saw Hinata and Naruko as sisters. Naruto finally had a family and was happy beyond his wildest dreams. Naruto and the group saw the bridge and were awed by its size and engineering. The name of the bridge also caused several members to be even more impressed. Tsunade actually began to question the reports she had read on the mission. Naruto-kun, I have a question about what happened here in Wave. Why did they name the bridge after you and not Sasuke? An older man walked out from entrance arch of the bridge. I can answer that question. Hello Naruto, how are you doing? Naruto's face lit up. Hey old man, I am okay. How are Inari and Tsunami? Tazuna smiled and put his hand on Naruto's shoulder. It is good to see you again Naruto, Inari and Tsunami are doing fine. I am glad you got out of that day glow orange suit. It yell, I am here, kill me now. Tazuna teased. Naruto frowned at the comment. Hey, I like orange, but I understand what you mean. Tazuna turned to Tsunade. I am Tazuna the bridge builder. This young man is a hero. Tazuna tightened his grip on Naruto's shoulder to point out that he was the person he wanted to designate as a hero. How is he a hero? Tsunade asked, wanting to hear the real story. He brought hope back to this country and he also helped in defeating Gato. Without him we would not be here. Tazuna bragged. Naruto blushed. I didn't do that much, I just helped Inari and Zabuza see the truth. Naruto's face went downcast at the memory. I am sorry Haku. Haku smiled weakly as Naruto squeezed his hand for reassurance. It is alright Naruto-kun. You saved my life and gave me more precious people to protect. For that I am eternally grateful. Tazuna chuckled. So why are you visiting Kid? The village abandoned him. Hinata replied sadly. Tazuna stopped dead in his tracks. How could a great village like Konoha abandon a hero like Naruto, here? Tsunade lowered her head in shame. The village council declared that because he injured a fugitive comrade that he should either be executed or exiled from the village. I as Hokage could not stand and have my favorite cousin killed. So I wrote up the exile papers, asked a few friends to join and left the village to become independent shinobi. Would your village like to host our group? Tsunade asked with a smirk. Tazuna's eyes widened and his jaw dropped. It took a couple minutes before he actually answered. Would we? You bet we would. Inari would love to have his Nissan back. There should be just enough room in the house for you all. So you will stay with us for the time being. Until you can find a place of your own and set up shop. The walk to Tazuna's house was nice and quiet until Tazuna asked a simple question. Why are you so quiet Naruto? You used to be a loud mouth. Tazuna smirked at the jab. Naruto became livid. What do you mean I was a loud mouth? Naruto yelled his rebuttal. Anko laughed at Naruto's complaint. I see what you mean. Anko retorted. Naruto grumbled as everyone just either laughed or giggled. Hinata giggled but also wrapped her arms around Naruto and kissed him on the cheek. She then hugged his arm the rest of the way to Tazuna's house. Tazuna opened the door only to yell. Hey Tsunami, look what I found just hanging around the bridge. Tsunami turned, stared and dropped the plate she had been washing. She looked Naruto in the eyes and began to cry. She ran up to Naruto and wrapped him into a loving hug. She shifted from a hug to holding his face in her hands and looked directly into his eyes. Is that really you Naruto-kun? Naruto nodded as she again wrapped him in a loving embrace and gave him a motherly kiss on the forehead. We have missed you Naruto-kun. Inari will be so happy you came back to visit. Naruto had returned the hug but held a sad look on his face. It's not a visit. It is a little more permanent. Naruto whispered but still audible to all present. Tsunami released the embrace enough to look him in his sad eyes. What do you mean? The village apparently turned on him. Tazuna answered. That is terrible. Tsunami stated as she again hugged Naruto. So Naruto-kun, who are your friends? Tsunade came forward with a kind smile. I am Tsunade Senju, Naruto's cousin, Hinata Hyuga, his fiancée, Shizune, my first apprentice, Anko, Special Jonin, Naruko, Naruto's sister, Haku, soon-to-be brother-in-law. Naruko and Haku blushed at Tsunade's statement. Tsunade continued the introductions. This is Hio, Chimera, Ayane, and an Anbu squad. I am the former Hokage of Konoha. Tsunami looked confused, but just then a child entered the room. Whoa, who are all these people? Suddenly Inari recognized one individual. Naruto Nissan. Inari yelled as he jumped at Naruto and wrapped his arms around him. He in childlike glee began to question Naruto in rapid succession without ever giving Naruto a chance to answer. Is it really you? Why are you here? Did you bring me anything? Who's the girl? Is she your girlfriend? What happened to the pink bimbo? What about the emo jerk? Can you teach me to be a cool ninja like you? How about Mr. Blindfold? How long are you staying? Is this a visit or have you come to live with us? Tsunami finally stopped him with a gentle hand on his shoulder. I am sure Naruto-kun will answer all your questions, in time. Give him a chance to answer at least, Inari. She then looked at Naruto. So how long are you staying? Tsunade cleared her throat. We are independent shinobi and we're hoping to make Wave our residence. So we may be here a while, especially if we set up shop here. We can bring even more commerce to your lands. We basically have 3 teams right now. Naruto looked at Tsunade like she was crazy. What do you mean we have 3 teams? Tsunade took a deep breath. Well, first we have the Anbu team. Second we have a team of 1 special Jonin, 2 Chunin and a Genin. Third we have a reserve team consisting of a Sannin, her apprentice, an ice user, and an Uchiha, 2 of which are on medical leave. Tsunade said with a wink. Naruto blanched. You mean our team leader and sensei is Anko? Tsunade and Anko smirked at Naruto's reaction. Yes, she is, your team leader, and she can be switched out with anyone from the Anbu team, Shizune or I as needed. Your team otherwise consists of Naruko-chan, Hinata-chan, and yourself. Do you have any questions? Everyone shook their heads. Okay Naruto, Naruko, Haku, and Hinata, time to hit the books while I help Tsunami with cleaning up. A round of ahs were heard. No complaints, now get going. Shizune ordered as the 4 unsealed books from scrolls, sat at the table and began to read. Tsunade took Tazuna aside. How much would it be to buy some land and build a compound on it? Tazuna put his hand to his chin and thought about it. How big a place are we talking about? I will need at least a dozen bedrooms, a couple sealed labs, several showers and baths. That is all I can think of right now, but I am sure there will be more. Oh yes, I need a place to set up a clinic and medical ward of at least 6 beds. Tazuna smiled. A clinic would also be good for the village. You could charge for your services, and offer some free work too. If what I am thinking this through correct, you will have several doctors in training soon. So the clinic could be a learning one. I suggest we build you a compound on the outskirts of town and clinic in town so you can get away from the hassles of work at home. How does that sound? Tsunade smiled broadly as Tazuna noticed her finally begin to show the signs of exhaustion. That sounds great. Also, we will need a good size area of land that we are more or less going to destroy on a regular basis. I know of a good spot for the building, but it will take a month or 2 to build and get it ready. We can put you up until it is finished if you like. Tazuna offered. Tsunade thought about it. Only if you let us pay you rent for the rooms we use and help pay for the food. Deal? Tsunade offered her hand. Deal. Also, you should rest some tomorrow, take a load off. I can tell when someone is about to fall apart. Tazuna took her hand, shook it and then pulled her into a hug. You are special to Naruto and thus are special to us. So we can't have you falling apart anytime soon. Tazuna smiled gently to Tsunade, who smiled appreciatively back. Ayane used her hand to mess up Naruto's hair as she walked by him at the table. So you are the Naruto-kun. Itachi-kun had such high praise for you. Naruto and Naruko both froze at the name of Itachi was uttered. Ayane looked at Tsunade, she nodded her head. It's all right Naruto-kun, I will not betray or hurt you. Naruto appeared to ease a little bit. I also hear that my cousin, Sasuke-chan, was not very nice to you. He will have to answer to me. As for Itachi-kun, next time we see him let me do the talking and you might be surprised. Naruto and Naruko both giggled at Sasuke being referred to by the chan suffix, but were surprised that Ayane wanted to talk to Itachi for them. Are you sure you're an Uchiha? Naruto questioned. Ayane chuckled as she sat across from Naruto. I am sure, but sometimes the clan questioned if I was. So did Sasuke-chan get his Sharingan to activate? Naruto saddened and looked away. Naruko spoke up for her brother. Yes, he now has all 3 tomos, thanks to him working over Naruto Nissan. He nearly killed him, now he is basking in the glory while he is being exiled. Seems like the traitor is living the high life to me. Naruto's face lit up. Not really, he isn't getting everything he wanted. From what I gathered from Gamakichi, Gamabunta and Ero Sanin put him in his place in front of the council. Naruto happily replied. Hinata, Naruko, Haku and Anko knew this, that the happy attitude was just an act on his part. He was very angry that he had to leave Konoha and might not be able to achieve his dream of being Hokage. Good, someone should put the Teme in his place. Ayane stated bluntly, catching everyone by surprise. I want the Kyuubi brat killed and his head on a pike. He denied me my new vessel. I need the Sharingan, and he denied me it. Send a force to find and destroy him. Now leave me Kabuto. Orochimaru demanded. His left eye showed his malice, being that he was covered in bandages and only his left eye was visible. As you wish, Orochimaru-sama, I will get right on that. There might be hope yet that Sasuke-kun comes anyways. Kabuto replied. As Orochimaru's interests were piqued, he nodded for Kabuto to go on. Well, if what I heard is correct, the village is not giving him what he desires and he may just leave again to gain it. Shall I send an emissary to contact him so that he may still come to us? Orochimaru chuckled evilly. Yes, Kabuto, please make contact. We may yet be able to get him to come to us willingly, even though it will again be 3 years until I can take a host. Send them right away, and let him know that we still want him to come so that he can gain power from me. Kabuto bowed as he turned to leave. As you wish, Orochimaru-sama, so it will be done. Ebisu was very annoyed, yes, very annoyed. He had been pulled from training Konohamaru and now he was forced to train Sasuke Uchiha. The council was becoming full of itself. The boy only wanted to just copy the jutsu, not learn anything about the jutsu. He just wanted to copy them. This just isn't done. To use a jutsu properly you must understand when and where to use a jutsu, its weaknesses and the like. He tried to explain this to Sasuke several times but he would not have it. At least Naruto would sit for an explanation and try to understand why he was doing what he was doing. Sure, he had several jutsu he could teach Sasuke, but they all had big glaring weaknesses. Shadow Clone had a weakness of chakra and mental exhaustion, which was funny that it wasn't in Sasuke's arsenal, as Ebisu was sure that he had had several opportunities to copy it from Naruto as his teammate. Also, his demands of only offensive jutsu and no defensive jutsu were preposterous. Sasuke, you need to learn when and where to use a jutsu. Being totally offensive will kill you instantly. You must have a balanced approach. Ebisu warned. Just give me the jutsu and stop prattling. I need to get stronger to beat him. Sasuke droned on. Ebisu sighed. I know you want to defeat your brother, but he understood the concept of attack and defense. If you can't understand that, I can't teach you. Even Naruto understood that I had something to offer him when I worked with him before the Chunin exams. Then give me your summon scroll. Sasuke demanded. Ebisu pushed his glasses back up to the bridge of his nose to calm down. I don't have one and I wouldn't even let you if I did. They are creatures of trust and you apparently could not earn the trust of the great Gamabunta. Sasuke growled. If that is all you're going to teach me, then we are done and you are relieved from teaching me. Sasuke replied and then whispered under his breath. That damn toad doesn't know who he was dealing with. Sasuke turned and walked from the training field with his Anbu escort. Naruto was walking to his room when he heard soft crying. He opened the door to Tsunade, Shizune and Anko's room. Tsunade was slumped over on her desk crying. She then noticed a hand touch her shoulder. She looked up and saw Naruto. She immediately embraced him in a hug. I am so sorry, Naruto-kun. I couldn't protect you and I had to make a choice between you and the village. I had to choose you. Naruto, not knowing what to do, just wrapped his arms around Tsunade and gently patted her on the back. Thank you, was all he could muster as a reply. About 20 minutes later, Tsunade had fallen asleep as Naruto had shifted her to her futon in a sleepy stupor. Good night, Aunt Tsunade, Naruto said quietly as he left the room, only to find most everyone standing in the hall. Each of the females gave Naruto a hug and left to their rooms in turn. Next to last was Ayane, who kissed him gently on the forehead. You are sweet, don't ever change, Naruto-kun. Naruto blushed as Hinata took his hand and led him to their room that they shared with Hio. Hio smiled warmly from her futon to Naruto. Naruto-Nisan is good. She then laid her head down and went quickly to sleep. You did a good thing for Tsunade-sama, Naruto-kun. Hinata stated as she kissed him gently on the lips. Now let's get ready for bed as we have a long day tomorrow as Naruto has to create a shadow clone and has to help you assimilate the information. You both need to figure out how to filter the information so that your personalities do not merge or you get information you do not want. Hinata stated as she finished getting ready for bed. Naruto nodded as he also finished getting ready for bed. They laid down on the same futon and quickly fell asleep. The next day was bright and sunny. Naruto and Hinata went and changed into their outfits, as Naruto also changed. Tsunade interrupted everyone getting ready as she called out to the group. Okay everyone, we need to get everyone checked out for duty, as we will have some duty after we get the new house established. Now I want the males to line up and come into this room for Shizune to examine them. This is a full examination, so when you enter the room you are to fully, and I mean fully, disrobe and lay down on the table to be examined. Shizune and I will conduct this examination. This will happen after injuries on missions or once every few months. Now after the apprentices are trained you will have to be examined by the opposite sex to become accustomed to this, as Shizune and I will be quite tired after this. Sorry, ladies, if you feel uncomfortable with this, but it needs to happen. I assure you that Naruto-kun and Haku-kun will not do anything that isn't clinically necessary. Tsunade said, accentuate in her meaning by cracking her knuckles, causing both males to swallow loudly, and nodded their acknowledgement to the threat. Naruto and Haku were led into a room with Shizune. Shizune pointed to a chair, and then to Haku, who then took a tablet from Shizune. She then nodded to Naruto, who looked confused. Naruto-kun, you need to disrobe now, she said. Naruto nodded but was slow to comply. Shizune then teased, would you prefer that I bring all the females in here to disrobe you, Naruto-kun? Naruto shook his head as images of Anko using a kunai danced through his head. He quickly disrobed. Shizune looked him over, then pulled out a tape measure and began to measure his height, his chest size and most all of his other measurements. Haku jotted the numbers down as she called them off. Okay, lay down. Face up if you like or face down, it does not matter to me, she said. Why doesn't it matter to you? Naruto asked. Shizune sighed and sat next to Naruto. Because Naruto-kun, when we are in here I am your doctor, not a woman gawking at a male. So now, both of you understand that you need to learn detachment when you do these examinations. I couldn't do my job if I wanted to gawk at all the guys I've seen. Also, knowing what you look like in your birthday suit doesn't let me know what you are like inside, and that is what counts, not the physical measurements. Those are just the icing on the cake, so to speak. Now lay down and we will begin the diagnostic, she ordered. Shizune did several hand signs as Naruto watched, and Shizune then moved her hand over Naruto. It felt different than the usual diagnostic and she moved more slowly than she had before. She then said, interesting, Haku, add this to the notes. There is no scarring from previous injuries other than the ones from the fight with Sasuke Uchiha. Of note, Naruto has scarring on his chest and also his ribcage. His lung also has minor scarring where the new one and the old one are connected. There also appears to be scarring near the base of the neck between the 5th and 6th cervical vertebrae. Any other notes to report, Shizune-san? Haku asked. Shizune continued to examine Naruto until she hovered over his crotch. Naruto began to shift uneasily as she seemed to be concentrating. Naruto-kun, sit still, I will be done in minute, she ordered. Naruto settled down, but felt uneasy as her hand hovered over him. Her hand closed and the green chakra dissipated. She happily declared, Naruto is fully viable and should show no problem with having children. Okay Naruto-kun, your turn to take the notes for Haku-kun. Also Haku put down that he is still suffering from being malnourished and we should address this issue as soon as possible, Shizune ordered. Naruto gave her a funny look, then sat up and put his shorts back on as Haku disrobed. Naruto took the chair that Haku was in, took the notebook, and began to write down the information that Shizune told him to. Of note, Haku still has only one lung but that should be rebuilt fully in a month or two, and Shizune also proclaimed Haku also viable for producing children. The other male exams went quietly without incident. Tsunade entered and looked at the boys only in their boxers and smiled. So, you figured you would put the patients at ease? Well, get dressed. We still have 2 more to finish with and the girls will be joining us for these examinations, Tsunade said. Naruto and Haku quickly put on their clothes, and readied themselves for the next 2 examinations. "Ready, Shizune? You or me first?" Tsunade inquired as Shizune opened her robe, much to the embarrassment of the boys. Tsunade frowned and said, "Stop it, boys, or I will have the girls do a follow-up examination of you right now. First, you will not look at her as a female but as a patient. Second, you will honor her by not getting embarrassed by seeing her naked. The patient will be nervous enough without you showing that you don't have the ability to put a perverted thought aside to deal with the examination. Also, I am next, and I don't want to hear any complaints when I drop the genjutsu for the exam." Naruto swallowed loudly. Shizune disrobed as the boys steeled themselves to see a woman naked for nearly the first time. Shizune stood and waited for Tsunade to start the exam, as Naruto took the notebook to take down the notes on the exam. Both Haku and Naruto had that task, as it would give them a distraction from watching Tsunade measure Shizune and then moving her hand over her body. It was over with quickly enough, with the report that Shizune was also still able to bear children. Tsunade's exam took a little longer than expected, as it took a little bit for Naruto to adjust to both visages of a naked Tsunade, with and without her genjutsu. Tsunade explained that the reason for putting them in the uncomfortable situation was so that they would not freeze up if they had to deliver a baby, do surgery, or do an exam if one of the girls were not available. And it was possible that could happen, as there were her only apprentices. Tsunade and Shizune volunteered themselves first to make it easier for the others to trust the boys, as they would eventually be either nurses or doctors in their own right. Of surprising note, was that Tsunade could also bear children, despite being over 50. After the examinations were complete, Naruto was fighting to not say anything for fear of getting hit by Tsunade. While attractive for her age even without her genjutsu, she still did not excite the young men, being 13 and 14 respectively. Breakfast was served as the group went downstairs. Several eyes watched the house near the water, each aware of the other's presence. 4 groups sat and watched for several hours until the occupants began to leave the building, only to shift to a guard stance. Tsunade was not pleased, as it appeared that they were nearly surrounded but only from the shore and they had 3 civilians in the house. "Come out now and show yourselves. I know there are at least 4 groups of you," Tsunade ordered. A group of rock shinobi walked out of the forest first near the trail to the house. A group of cloud shinobi including a blonde woman and a dark-skinned man with a large number of swords came out of the forest a little ways away from the rock shinobi. A group of mist shinobi exited on the other side of the rock shinobi. The rock and cloud shinobi groups both bowed to Tsunade and the group as they exited the forest. The mist shinobi looked on at Hinata with disgust in their eyes, as Naruto took a position in front of her. Naruto growled at the mist shinobi. They were taken aback by this reaction. The 4th group did not appear, but several kunais suddenly went straight at Naruto. All were blocked by senbon, shuriken or kunai thrown from behind him. Naruto looked at those behind him as each appeared ready to fight, and he even saw Anko licking her lips. "You okay, Gaki?" Anko asked with actual concern in her voice, as Naruto nodded and turned back towards the guests and the unknown assailants. Suddenly sand erupted from that section of forest, only to show 4 figures being pushed out of the forest by the sand. "Let us go, you demon!" One of the masked figures yelled back into the sand. "I think not. I need only your heads for identification, so this is goodbye for attacking my friend." Sand burial. Gaara appeared on a tree limb as he closed his hand and crushed the 4 from the forest. "Hey blonde, long time no see." Tamari teased, as she appeared next to her brother. "Please, Gaara-sensei, slow down so we can keep up," a brown-haired girl stated as she jumped on the branch next to Gaara panting heavily. Moments later another girl appeared next to Tamari also panting. "Looks like we need to work on your stamina, girls," Tamari commented to the 2 sand kunoichi who just nodded in agreement. Both the cloud and the rock contingent began to leak demonic killing intent. The girls standing next to Gaara and Tamari both collapsed and had to be held upright. Tsunade knew the situation was going downhill and fast. "So Gaara and Tamari of the desert, to what do we owe the pleasure of your company?" Tsunade asked, hoping that she could refocus attention away from the Ichibi Jinchuriki. "The Council of Suna is most displeased with the exile of Naruto Uzumaki, and thus has proposed a marriage so that he could be protected by Suna," Gaara stated in a monotone voice. Naruto looked up at his friend confused. Marriage, to whom? He asked, scratching the back of his head. Temari smirked at the question. Me, of course, silly. It isn't like there would be many that Gaara-kun here would agree for me to be married to, she admitted, stating the obvious. Naruto gently grabbed Hinata's hand. I'm sorry, Temari-chan, but I am spoken for, but thanks for the offer, he replied politely. Temari just chuckled and smiled at Naruto. You don't know what you're going to miss, she said as she laughed. Naruto shook his head. I'm sorry Temari-chan, but I barely know what I'm doing with one who I have ignored for years. What would I do with another? He asked. Nearly everyone face faulted except for Temari, who jumped down next to Naruto, in between both him and Hinata and whispered, you could always share. Both Naruto and Hinata turned beet red. You could just marry us both, and I could just live the life of luxury and not have to worry about being a real wife, Temari added, which caused both to turn even brighter red. Temari chuckled to herself at how easy it was to tease these two. She decided to put on the finishing touch and added, I would only be in your bed for one night, and after that, if I had a kid so be it. If not you would never have to return to my bed again. If you were daring, we could have a threesome with your girlfriend too. It might make for an interesting night. Naruto and Hinata finally hit the edge with that statement and passed out. Temari smiled as she rubbed her hands in satisfaction, and giggled, that was too easy. Shizune turned the attention away from fainting pair. These were from Konoha, I believe they were root agents, not actual Anbu. Tsunade-sama, Shizune declared as she examined the 4 dead bodies. Tsunade nodded her acknowledgement. We will take into consideration the marriage proposal from Suna. So what do Mist, Rock, and Cloud want? Tsunade asked. One of the Mist shinobi stepped forward with a sneer on his face. Tsunade of the Sannin, we wish to offer you a place in our village for all of your people except for those with bloodlines, the man said. He then continued to glare at Hinata. Tsunade caused everyone to jump when she burst out laughing. The startled Mist Nin asked, what did I say that is so funny? I am of a family of bloodline holders. You ask me to join your village, but don't look to see if I have one myself. I possess one, but it is dormant. So if I were to have any children, you would kill them, so I decline your offer, Tsunade stated as she continued to laugh. You would mock me a Junin bearing an offer from the Mizukage, and telling me of a preposterous idea of an old hag like you having children? The man asked, he then added, don't make me. The man found himself flying at the sand that had killed the Konoha root agents and Tsunade standing in his spot. Tsunade turned to Gaara. Gaara, if you'll do the honors, she asked, as she smiled sadistically. The sand opened up as the man entered a newly formed hole in it. Gladly. Sand burial. Gaara proclaimed as the sand flattened, and a sickening crunch was heard. Temari sat and watched as she placed both Naruto's and Hinata's heads on her lap with the help of Anko. Tsunade turned to the remaining Mist shinobi. Any more of you wish to insult me? She asked threateningly. All 3 shook their heads. Annoyed at their wasting her time, she ordered, then get out of my sight. Tsunade swept her hand as she told them to leave. She turned to the rock shinobi. So what does our former greatest enemy want with me? A red-haired man stood and walked towards Tsunade and then bowed. Tsunade of the Senju, former Godem Hokage of Konoha, Sannin named so by Hanzo of Aim. We of Iwa ask that you take us on as vassals for a while so that we can prove our village is worth you coming to establishing a clan with us. If at any time you wish us gone we will leave you and your part in peace. I am Rushi, retired Junin and Jinchuriki of Iwa, the man explained. Tsunade raised an eyebrow. We can discuss this later, but for the moment you are welcome as long as you guarantee the safety of my blonde friends over there, Tsunade said, as she pointed at Naruto and Naruko. You have my word as a shinobi that they are safe with my men and I. Rushi promised as he bowed again. 2 from Kumo stepped forward, the blonde female and the dark-skinned man with swords, but they seemed to be bickering. Kurabi, do not insult her with your lyrics. Your brother, the Raikage, told me to do the talking as you seem to keep on getting people mad at you, the woman argued. Tsunade raised an eyebrow at the approaching pair, and asked, so what is it that Cloud wants? Naruto and Hinata began to stir. Both grabbed Temari's knee and noticed they were on a black pillow, her battle kimono to be exact. So you 2 sleepy heads decide if you want a threesome? Temari teased. Yugito and Kurabi both bowed before Tsunade. Honorable Tsunade Senju-sama, we of Cloud wish to extend an invitation to Kumo where we guarantee the protection of all your party. The Raikage wishes to speak with you regarding you and your reason for leaving Konoha. You have as long as you like to decide on accepting this offer, as both Kurabi and I, Yugito ni, have been told to stay by your side no matter what you decide. The other two of our team are going to head back with you immediate decision, the woman, now known as Yugito, said, still not raising her head. Great, now I have added 10 mouths to feed including 4 more Jinchuriki. The cage must think that I'm really important. I know I would be good leverage politically against Konoha, but I wouldn't want to be that much of a burden to them no matter how much it has cost me. No, I'm here for Naruto-kun, and I will do what is right for him and Hinata-chan. Tsunade thought to herself, and then she said, I will have to take some time to figure out what I want to do. As for now, we need to make sure that all parties that are going to stay here can get along. First off, Iwa Shinobi, can all of you get along with those from the village that produced the yellow flash? Rushi nodded, as did another, but a third seemed conflicted and the fourth shook his head. Tsunade pointed at the two. I don't need anyone who can't control themselves, so you two can head back to Iwa, she ordered. Rushi stood and turned, he pointed at the two and nodded, both left the scene quickly. It is as you wish, Tsunade-sama. Rushi turned back around and returned to the bowing position. You of Kumo, Tsunade said, bringing the attention of the Cloud Shinobi to her. She pointed at Hinata, and explained, that girl, Hinata is of the Hyuga line and is the betrothed to my cousin Naruto Senju Uzumaki. If any of you can't keep from thinking of brining her to your village to use her as a breeding factory for Kekkei Genkei, you can just leave now. She is protected by my cousin, and our entire group. I would also advise not crossing Naruto, as Gaara here can agree with me that he would cross the planet to avenge anything ill that happened to her. Tsunade turned to Gaara, who just nodded in agreement. Temari spoke at that point. I also name her as my sister, Hinata of the Desert. The Council of Suna has given us considerable leeway to name whatever you want to have you allied with our village, if not become part of it, Temari proclaimed. She then continued. The idea for the marriage was both the council's and mine. So whether he accepts or not, both of them are under the protection of Suna. Temari's comment caused Tsunade to smile, as she knew that the Suna contingent could be trusted. Kurabi stood up and smiled. She is free and it is all right by me, he replied, his smile turning into a grin similar to Naruto's, though the sunglasses gave him a different look. Yugito scowled. I told you to zip it, she said, slightly annoyed. Yo toots, I'm the one of us with 8 so you don't have to get irate, Kurabi stated with a smile as most everyone groaned. He looked around, his shoulders slumped, and he said, so everyone's a critic. Yugito turned to the other two Kumo shinobi, and nodded as they left. I have sent them with a message that you are still deciding what to do, Tsunade-sama, she explained. Tsunade sighed. How did the information get to the villages so quick? And how did you find me so quickly? She asked, slightly confused. I know Jiraiya-sama sent a message to Suna as soon as you left, along with the possible locations of where you might go, Temari answered. Rushi stood and smiled. Iwa has spies in Konoha and they reported your departure. The Tsuchikage figured you would head this direction so we hurried and followed the route idiots. Rushi answered while pointing at the dead route agents. Yugito smirked. The Raikage has spies, but also knows that the Mizukage is in league with Akatsuki. So we followed them. We knew they would screw up and try to insult you, as a holder of a bloodline. We were not informed that you would be expecting a child though. Congratulations, she said, getting that twinkle in her eye that all women get upon hearing about pregnancy. Tsunade laughed, as did most of the former Konoha shinobi. It will be a couple years before I will be expecting, but thank you for your support in that area. Tsunade thanked Yugito. Shizune blushed, as she knew she was going to be the surrogate mother for Tsunade's child. I think we have a few too many here for the house, and the village doesn't have an inn just yet. How are we going to house them? She asked nervously. Tazuna thought for a minute. Well, it isn't the rainy season, and the weather is quite nice right now, so if they want to camp on the beach I have no problem with that, as the house is near maximum capacity for people, he said. Tsunade looked around as everyone nodded to this arrangement. We can house you when we get the compound house built, Tsunade stated. I can help with making the foundation if you like, Rushi stated, as everyone looked at him like he was crazy. What? I have fire and earth affinity and thus I can use and make magma. That, when cooled, should make a good foundation. And kill all the plants in the area, Anko commented with a snicker. What was that girl? Rushi queried. Anko snickered as she put her fists on her hips. What, are you hard of hearing? She asked. Rushi shook his head, as he knew this was going to be interesting. No, but your outfit draws away the attention from your statements, Rushi stated with a smirk. Tsunade shook her head. Enough. We all need to get along, so no more quibbling, she ordered. Rushi laughed at this. I thought she and I were just getting to know each other, he chuckled. Tsunade laughed. So you two were engaged in foreplay in front of all of us? She asked. Both Rushi and Anko blushed at the comment. Tsunade pinched the bridge of her nose and said to the group, okay, enough playing around, set up camp now. Tazuna, I need you to get to work on that project we talked about. I need the dorms and kitchen built first. Tamari brushed both Naruto's and Hinata's hair as they both lay on her lap. We could have so much fun, you two, Tamari said with a smirk, as both Naruto and Hinata blushed. Tsunade walked over, knelt down, and suggested, you could always take the route I'm taking. Tamari perked up at this comment. I'm in luck. You're into older women, she exclaimed. Tsunade giggled as Naruto blushed. No, Naruto-kun here agreed to allow me to use artificial insemination to have a couple children. You could do that too so that others would think that you're married, she offered. Tamari huffed. I wanted to do it at least once. I don't want to be a virgin when I have children, she pouted. Hinata reached out and touched Naruto's hand. It would be up to Naruto-kun if that were to happen, but we can discuss it when we're older. I have first dibs though, Hinata stated as Naruto nodded. Back in Konoha, Jiraiya was getting annoyed by the council, as they kept on trying to get Tsunade to rescind the jail sentence for Sasuke, and also have her force Jiraiya to train Sasuke. Jiraiya kept up the facade that Tsunade was still in the village. Impersonating her for so long is not easy. I wonder if they will figure it out. I also have to thank the Gaki for the idea of using shadow clones for my research. They get caught, but I still get the information, Jiraiya thought to himself as he, in the form of Tsunade, developed a lecherous grin. The door opened with a clone of Shizune, another of his clones. Tsunade-sama, you have guests, Shizune stated as she bowed and let the elders pass with a thinly veiled scowl. Jiraiya also scowled as they entered. To what do I owe this honor? Jiraiya asked as if not knowing what the subject would be. We are here to discuss the clans not accepting the betrothals. We want you to help matters along, Tsunadeheim, Homura stated kindly. Jiraiya scowled even worse, making Tsunade's features become very angry. In actuality, he was enjoying this game of political twists and turns. No, Jiraiya simply stated. What do you mean by no? Kaharu asked, as if confused. No, I will not help, Jiraiya stated. Also, why have you not declared your apprentice a missing nin? She is not in the village, Homura inquired. She is running a mission for me. She is accompanying Naruto to his first destination along with a couple others. If you have a problem with that, then take it up with Hiyashi. Now I'm busy, so get out of my office. Jiraiya ordered. Why is she with the demon? Danzo asked. Jiraiya scowled at this comment. You would insult a member of my clan? As for Hinata, that is between her and I. Naruto needed medical attention for the next few weeks and she is there as his nurse, shall we say. Now, get out. Jiraiya yelled, as the Anbu left the corners and showed themselves to the elders, causing Jiraiya to grin. Or do I have to have you thrown out? Jiraiya asked, he then added, please say, yes, I'm sure it would make Naruto happy to have some retribution. The elders looked offended but left the room quickly. Not a half an hour later, Hiyashi was in the office complaining about the elders. Do you know that they had the audacity to say that if Hinata wasn't available then I should allow Hanabi to wed Sasuke? They also asked me where Hinata-chan was, so I told them she was on a mission for you. They are also pressing to have the Uchiha released early from prison, Hiyashi stated. I know. I had council member Haruno and her daughter in the office asking for a conjugal visit for her daughter. I turned it down immediately. My biggest problem right now is trying to keep up with Tsunade's schedule at the hospital. I'm no medic and playing the part of two medics is really getting hard, Jiraiya admitted. A grin appeared on his face, and he suggested, I think it is about time for Tsunade to disappear. Over the next month Haku was healed to nearly normal. his lung and chakra system were rebuilt. Temari had begun sleeping in the same room and on the same futons as Naruto and Hinata. She and Hinata would switch off cuddling with Naruto each night. While Naruto had kissed Hinata, he had yet to kiss Temari. Rushi and Anko kept on being caught in compromising positions, about once a week, with either Rushi's hand up her skirt or her hand down his pants, or both. The group was betting that they had either already slept with each other or would soon. Anko and Rushi were keeping quiet either way. Naruto and Naruko kept running into a name problem, with both of their names being so similar that sometimes each would answer for the other. Worse yet, they had not worked out a solution for clone memories. While Naruto liked Haku, he did not care for the memories of Naruko kissing him, even if it brought up a pleasant feeling. Naruko was in a similar boat. While she liked Hinata, she had never wanted to kiss her, so when the stray memory of kissing Hinata came up, she had to suppress the urge to kiss the girl by either immediately taking Haku's lips or remembering Haku's physical exam. Gaara and Temari continued to train the two girls who had accompanied them. Temari eventually had to have a talk with Matsuri about her feeling towards Gaara. This ended with a fight between the two females about trying to give Jinchuriki love. Matsuri finally at the end of the month came before Gaara and admitted that she was in love with him. Gaara, not knowing what to do, asked Naruto and Haku what he should do. Both of them told him to accept her feelings and see where this would go. They also advised that he also talk with her about his feelings or lack thereof. Whatever they may be, Naruto also advised that he talk about his early childhood, so she would have a frame of reference for his feeling or lack thereof. From that point on, Matsuri and Gaara became inseparable. Tsunade also received a message from Jiraiya that he was going to have a clone of her leave the village in a couple weeks, even after the village has just started to chisel her face onto the mountain. Tsunade smirked at this, as he had already secured the position of Hokage for when she stepped down, so that the council wouldn't do something rash like have Sasuke elected Hokage, or something to that effect. Jiraiya in the letter also promised a showy departure for her from the village. Her big worry was about her supposed leaving and the council trying to muck things up. Naruto's control increased by leaps and bounds because of Naruko's clones. Naruto, Naruko, and Haku finally agreed to change Naruko's name to Akemi, and thus they would stop the confusion with Naruto. Medical training also continued, as Naruto now had enough control to do a poor version of the chakra scalpel. Along with the added control came more proficiency with the Rasengan and other jutsu. Tsunade and Shizune taught the 4 new jutsu, as they continued to excel on their studies. Anko and Rushi disappeared for a couple of days onto a secluded island. When they came back, they were tight-lipped and would not talk about their absence. Although Anko would always seem to leer at Rushi and blush profusely, as no one could tell if Rushi was blushing because of his facial markings. Construction began with the ninja compound during this time period, and Tazuna had to actually import workers to do all the construction. This in itself caused more construction to happen, as they also needed housing. The village nearly doubled in size in the time of a week. Teens also did jobs around the village and away from the village, as there were the unfinished mission scrolls that they had taken from Konoha. Tsunade shifted the teams around, as the skills needed for each job differed. Teams varied. Even on time, there was an all-Jinchuriki team of Rushi, Yugito, Naruto and Gaara. This team was able to capture a small group of high-ranked missing nin. Sakura was angry, very angry, as she couldn't visit Sasuke and her mother kept on telling her it was Naruto's fault, so she blamed him for her troubles, like she usually did. The only thing was that she couldn't take her anger out on Naruto for the problems he had caused. Worse yet, Ino and her were having more problems, as Ino stuck to the premise that it wasn't Naruto's fault, and that it actually was the fault of the village council. Flashback. Sakura sat back on the bench in front of the flower shop. You know, Ino, even with him not here, Naruto is still causing problems, she ranted. Ino gasped at this. What do you mean? He hasn't even been here for a while and you're blaming him for things that are going on around here? She asked. Sakura nodded. Yeah, my mother even said that Jiraiya-sama refused to train Sasuke-kun. Can you believe that? She asked. Ino shook her head. You're being a fool, Sakura. Jiraiya-sama wouldn't train Sasuke, because he trained Naruto, and Sasuke nearly killed him, she explained. Oh, you're just being overzealous, Ino. Naruto wasn't hurt that bad, or Tsunade-sama would have gone with him to make sure he was alright, Sakura explained. Ino just shook her head at the blind faith her friend seemed to have towards Sasuke. Sakura, you know that Naruto heals faster than normal, right? She asked, as Sakura nodded. Well, from what I heard, Sasuke hit Naruto several times with that Chidori attack. You know that it's an assassination jutsu. In other words, he meant to kill Naruto, not just hurt him and get away. He actually meant to kill him, she explained. Sakura was stumped by the realization that Sasuke did know that jutsu and would actually use it on Naruto. Sure, he was annoying, but to actually try to kill him? She thought to herself. She stammered an attempt to defend Sasuke, but at the moment she couldn't because of the fight on the roof a few days before their return, and just sat there with her mouth agape. Ino put her hand on Sakura's shoulder, and then said, Sasuke betrayed the village, and worse yet, he tried to kill a teammate. Naruto may be an idiot, but he is loyal. The council was up to something when they did what they did. They even tried to force Jiraiya to train Sasuke. I also heard that Sasuke tried to force Gamabunta to be his summons with his Sharingan. That is no way to treat a summons. Look, think it over, and if you're still so hung up on Sasuke that you can't see the truth, then fine, you can have him. Me, I'm looking for other fish, and you can tell your mother that I have refused the marriage proposal with Sasuke, as my clan now opposes the Uchiha, she explained, as she got up and went back into the flower shop. End flashback. Damn Ino pig. Why does she have to make so much sense? Is my mother pushing me into something wrong? Sakura thought to herself. Have I really been such a bad teammate to ignore what might have happened to Naruto? Sakura continued to ponder for the next hour, as she waited for Kakashi to show up. Hiyashi wasn't a happy man. No, he wasn't. The village council had again voted to try to make Hinata a missing nin. Again they had failed. Jiraiya had forced the issue with having to pull rank on the shinobi members and forcing them to vote against this or face sanctions from the Hokage. Jiraiya looked very tired, as he was still in the form of Tsunade. So what do you have planned for your retirement, Tsunade-sama? Hiyashi asked, knowing it was actually Jiraiya. Hanabi looked up confused at Jiraiya. You're retiring, Tsunade-sama? Jiraiya smiled warmly at the young Hyuga. Yes, child. I'm retiring and going to let the pervert take over. I can't stand being away from the one person who brought meaning back to my life, he explained. Who is that, Tsunade-sama? Hanabi asked, confused and wanting to know, as she had seemed to spend more time at the Hyuga residence than at the Hokage mansion. Jiraiya smiled warmly at Hanabi, and answered, why, Naruto Uzumaki, who else? But they have just started construction of your face on the mountain. Why would you leave now? She asked innocently. Jiraiya chuckled at the question, but decided to answer, because of Naruto, I took up the mantle of Hokage, so that he could eventually take it, but with the way things are now, he trailed off, putting his head on his hand and looking off into the distance. Boy, am I a good actor, or what? He thought to himself. Hiyashi watched this conversation with mirth, and thought, he's such a ham, but it is believable, and that is what counts. Kabuto, how are the missions to find the Kyuubi brat and to get my new vessel from Konoha proceeding? Orochimaru asked. Kabuto smirked, and said, the mission to get Sasuke-kun is going well. We should have him within 6 months and you can begin his training then. As for Naruto-kun, we're not sure where he is. We have sent agents all over, the ones to Wave have not reported, nor have the ones in Suna, Iwa, or Kumo. We did receive an interesting message from our spies in Kiri though. Orochimaru smiled, and asked, oh, what do they say? They say that Tsunade is in Wave, but we can't verify this in any way though, Kabuto replied. Orochimaru began to laugh, and asked to no one in particular, what are you up to, Tsunade-heim? No, Naruto, that isn't how you should do that attack. Yugito yelled, who taught you how to fight? Naruto picked himself off the ground, and answered, well, I sort of trained myself, when the teachers taught me things, such as kata that wouldn't easily work together for me. Yugito and Anko shook their heads, as Anko commented, so the great Kakashi didn't help you with your taijutsu? Naruto shook his head to her question. Big surprise for the laziest guy in Konoha. Did he teach you any jutsu? She asked. Naruto shook his head, as he ruffled Hio's hair. She smiled at her Nissan. Hio is as good as Nissan, she sang out loud, as Naruto just shook his head and the Junin just laughed. Chimera laughed and spoke quietly, Naruto Nissan? Everyone turned and looked at her. Naruto smiled, and asked, Yes, Chimera-chan? Chimera blushed, and asked, why do you not hate that village, for what they did to you? I know I hate Orochimaru for what he did to us. Naruto sighed, as he then embraced the girl, and said, what would it do if I hated them? Would it change their minds? How would it help me become a better person? I put up with the idiots because there are people there that I care about. Those are the people that make putting up with the heartache worth it in the end. The others can have their stupid opinions. Chimera began to sob, and said, thank you Naruto-Nisan. Anytime, Chimera-chan, anytime, Naruto whispered, as he continued the embrace. Yugito cocked her head and smiled. You've got a special one there. Too bad Konoha didn't realize what they had, she commented sadly. Anko put her arm on Yugito's shoulder, and said, that he is. Akemi knew there had to be a way to block some of the memories from getting to Naruto, and others from him getting to her. She especially didn't want this afternoon's memories to get to Naruto, as he might injure Haku, and she didn't want that to happen. A makeout session had gone a little too far. While they had not had sex, they had come darn close. Luckily Haku had stopped them, or there may have been an explanation she didn't want to give to either Tsunade or Naruto. Best she could figure is that she had gone into heat, but wanted to talk to Hana to make sure. The funny part was that Haku would need a new outfit, as she had literally shredded it in a passion-induced haze. She had not hurt Haku, just his clothes. She understood the urges but not the force behind them. When she came back to her senses, she had turned bright red, but the more embarrassing part was seeing Haku naked and her hovering over him in the same state. She decided that they should have separate rooms for at least a few days until these urges passed. She just was worried that Naruto would be angry with her. Hinata came into the room and noticed Akemi was in distress. Akemi-chan, are you okay? Akemi immediately broke down and admitted to her transgression. Okay, I did it, I almost took Haku-kun. I felt the needed to have him, it was so overwhelming. Hinata giggled and shook her head, and said, oh, is that all? Akemi was dumbfounded by the Hyuga's lack of being offended. Is that all? Is that all? It's enough, she screamed. She then continued, what if Naruto-kun found out? He would either hurt Haku-kun or me for doing that, she admitted and then blushed profusely. Hinata wrapped Akemi in a hug, and said, I've been in a similar boat to you. I want Naruto-kun so bad, but I understand that we need to wait. Also with Temari-chan we have other things to consider. The day Anko-chan came, I nearly took Naruto-kun for fear that she might have him first, she admitted, as Akemi held her mouth open in shock. She continued, yes Akemi-chan, we have those urges about those we love and desire. If I may ask, how far or close did you get? Akemi blushed, and replied, we were both naked and let's just say it was close. Haku-kun decided that we weren't ready and hugged me until the urge lessened enough for us to get dressed. I just am worried that Naruto-kun will be mad with me. Hinata giggled, and said, Naruto-kun wouldn't be mad. Maybe disappointed that you didn't wait, but he would never be mad at his little sister. He will be happy to know that Haku-kun took the responsibility for you. Truth be told, Naruto-kun is the one who keeps our relationship from going too far. He has a fear of being a father. He's worried that if he has children right now he couldn't be a good father to them. I would tend to disagree, but with all that we have learned from becoming apprentices to Tsunade-sama, I agree that we're not ready to be parents. Akemi embraced Hinata, and said quietly, thank you Hinata-nisan. So how do I hide it from Naruto-kun, as he gets my memories from my shadow clones? Hinata thought for a minute, and then said, how about you think more about what you want transferred and keep those thoughts you want to keep to yourself out of your mind. It might help. Akemi thought for a moment and then made a hand sign, and whispered, shadow clone jutsu. Hinata wondered why Akemi had a devilish grin on her face, but put it up to the Uzumaki prankster attitude, if only she knew. Naruto was in the middle of a spar with Rushi when an image of Hinata stepping nude into a path came to his mind. His face went bright red, as Rushi kicked Naruto into a tree. Rushi shook his head, and said, Naruto, you need to concentrate, if you are to fight Akatsuki on an even playing field. Naruto shook off the feeling of the impact and turned to Rushi and said, sorry, I think one of mine or Akemi's shadow clones are up to no good. Rushi raised an eyebrow, and asked, how so? Naruto turned beet red, wiped some blood from his nose, and shook his head, as he replied, nope, not going to explain. Naruto retook his stance and continued the spar. Kurabi stepped forward and asked, "How well do you know your Biju, Naruto?" Naruto stood and thought about the question, and then answered, "Well, every time I've met him, he's been a jerk. I first met him when Ero Sennin threw me off a cliff and I summoned Gamabunta." Tsunade grinded her teeth at hearing this. She knew Jiraiya was a little unusual in his training habits. Kurabi and the other looked at Naruto in awe, and only could ask, "How exactly were you treated?" Naruto became unusually sheepish, as he said, "I was ignored or shunned most of my life. A few beatings here and there, but the third took care of me," he said happily. Yugito took him by the shoulder and pulled him to the bench. "Naruto, Kurabi and I are the Jinchuriki of Kumo, his Biju is only second to yours. He is the brother to the current Raikage," she said kindly. She then looked at Tsunade and asked, "So your fourth sealed the 9 tails into a total stranger's child, a true orphan?" Tsunade bit her nail, as she weighed the pros and cons of telling Naruto his heritage. She sighed, as she began to speak, "Naruto, there are a few things you need to know. Jiraiya and I were going to tell you when we thought you would be ready to hear this, but seeing as there doesn't appear to be a good time." She took a deep breath, and asked, "How do you feel about the fourth for sealing the Kyuubi in you, Naruto?" Naruto thought hard and several emotions came to the surface. First of all, I admire him for being the best Hokage ever, but I'm also angry at him for forcing me to have such a hard life. In a way I understand why they treated me the way they did, but in other ways, I still don't understand. I protect them from the Kyuubi. Most of all, why did he choose me? Weren't there other children he could have chosen? He asked, as his eyes became very cold. Tsunade sat down beside Naruto and began to rub his back. He did worry about who he sealed the Kyuubi into. "You're special in so many ways. I can't begin to explain," she said, as she hugged him, and he returned the hug. "But why me?" he asked again. "Naruto, can you give me a physical description of the fourth?" she asked, as she looked into his eyes. Naruto nodded and answered, "He has bright spiky blonde hair, and blue eyes." Tsunade turned to Anko, and asked, "Anko, give me a physical description of Naruto." Anko looked at her in confusion, but answered, "The Gaki has bright spiky blonde hair, and blue." She then looked directly at Tsunade, who nodded her head. "No way, the Gaki is the fourth's brat?" Naruto watched the discussion between Tsunade and Anko only to become more confused. "Huh?" was all he could ask. Tsunade lifted his chin and kissed him on the forehead, and said, "Naruto-kun, you're the son of Minato Namikaze, the fourth Hokage of Konohagachure no Sato, and Kushina Uzumaki." It suddenly hit Naruto and he began to shake his head, and whispered, "No, no, how could he make his own son's life so miserable?" He suddenly got up and ran from the area, much to the surprise of most gathered. Anko shook her head, and said, "That is a lot to take in at once. Someone should keep an eye on him." Ayane stood. She then turned to the group, and said, "I'll watch over Naruto-kun. Maybe I can help him." Naruto had run for a few minutes and found a log to sit on, as he milled over the information he had just been presented. He was the son of the fourth, the most revered Hokage, and the strongest. He was the most shunned and reviled of the village. How could they do that to the son of a Hokage? What bothered him more is that if he had been raised as the son of a Hokage, he might have ended up like Sasuke, or Konohamaru. While Konohamaru wasn't too bad, he just needed some refinements. Sasuke, on the other hand, had ended up on a spoiled brat. Sure, they shared the fact that they had no family, but Sasuke was never shunned like he was. Was the reason he didn't become like Sasuke because his past was hidden from him, as was the fact that he contained the Kyuubi? Naruto felt and heard Ayane come up and sit down beside him. "A bu for your thoughts," she said in a playful tone. Naruto looked at her with saddened eyes, and said, "They treated me like I wasn't worth their time, but your cousin was almost a god." Ayane giggled at Naruto's comment. The main house of the Uchiha always thought of themselves as better than others. Itachi was better, but also he pushed himself. Little Sasuke resented the fact that his brother excelled while he was just good. You must understand that their father wasn't the nicest of people and wouldn't give praise easily or often, other than to Itachi. But with the praise came a lot of pressure to excel, she explained, as Naruto listened to her. "I only know little Sasuke of about 5 years ago, so I'm not sure how the deaths of the clan affected him. Also, Itachi being the one to destroy the clan must have had a big effect on Sasuke too. I understand why he wants to kill his brother for destroying the clan, but why couldn't he have stayed and done it with us? He asked in confusion. Ayane smiled warmly at Naruto, and then she asked, "You were hampered in the academy, were you not?" Naruto nodded to the question, so she continued, "So you were thought to be at the bottom of the class and not very capable, right?" He again nodded to her question. "So did your skill improve exponentially when you got out of the classroom?" Naruto nodded, but then asked, "Yes, but why does that matter?" Ayane rubbed his back, and explained, "What if you're improving and you have a competitive streak? But if the one you're competing against is improving quicker than you? You might feel like you're standing still." Naruto nodded, as if he understood, but wasn't sure if he did. She then continued, "Sasuke always compared himself to others, rather than comparing himself to what he could do the day or month before. This is a bad yardstick to use to do comparisons. Sasuke is an Uchiha and they do learn at an accelerated rate, especially with their Sharingan, but you're the container of the Kyuubi, the son of the fourth Hokage, and the apprentice to not one, but two Sannin." Naruto brightened up at hearing this, and asked, "So if we get him to train under a Sannin, say Ero Sennin, he wouldn't feel so far behind?" Ayane shook her head. She then said, "Everyone learns at their own pace, Naruto-kun. From what I've heard, Sasuke is jealous of your coming into your own and becoming strong enough to defend yourself. He wasn't ready for the dead last of the class to catch and surpass him. So don't worry," she said, but halted, as she looked around. Naruto became aware of two other presences, and said in a low growl, "Come out Itachi Teme." Itachi and Kisame appeared in the middle of the clearing, Kisame with a huge grin on his face. "I see you have improved Naruto-kun, but you will still have to come with us, you're still needed," Itachi explained. Naruto smirked, and said, "Me come with a heartless bastard like you? Not going to happen." Ayane looked on in awe, as she was being reunited with Itachi after so long. She then whispered under her breath, "Itachi-kun." Itachi looked at her and scowled. He then said, "An older woman, Naruto-kun?" Ayane was shaken out of her reverence by the coldness of his voice. She then activated her Sharingan, and said, "Itachi Uchiha, you will cease your assault upon Naruto-kun." Itachi was about to dismiss the girl but then began to recognize the woman with Naruto. The words were caught in his throat. As he spoke, "You're supposed to be dead." Ayane's face darkened, as she replied, "You can thank your father and Orochimaru for me supposed death, and Naruto-kun and his friends for my being alive. Now stop your attacks on Naruto-kun." Kisame's smile widened at hearing this discussion, and said to Naruto, "Shall we fight while the lovebirds resolve their differences?" Naruto shrugged, and pulled out a couple of kunai. He then smiled and asked, "So fish face, you really think you're going to win against me?" Kisame laughed at Naruto, and replied, "How are you a runt, going to beat me?" Naruto flared his chakra, and made a hand seal, while he whispered, "Multi-shadow clone jutsu." The clearing was filled with 100 Naruto. "That trick might work on others, but it won't work on me," Kisame proclaimed, as he swung his sword and made a swath of destroyed clones. Naruto smirked, as Kisame had fallen for his trap. Akemi and Hinata were in the bath relaxing, as she got an image of Kisame killing Naruto clones. She paled as images bombarded her mind. "Naruto-kun is in trouble," she said quietly, as she rose from the bath. Hinata gasped, as she nearly jumped from the bath, and gathered towels for her and Akemi. Both ran to their rooms to gather equipment. Anko shook her head, and said, "I don't understand what his problem is." Tsunade looked at the woman, sighed and said, "Naruto-kun had it worse than you did. Your teacher was a traitor. Naruto-kun has a demon that nearly destroyed the village sealed within him. He has only come to know that is the reason he was hated in the village. Now to learn the very person he admired sealed the one thing that has caused him such misery, is also his father. Wouldn't you be confused?" Anko nodded, and said, "Guess you're right and I've been a little hard on the Gaki." Anko and the others turned towards where Naruto and Ayane left, and she asked, "Isn't that Naruto's chakra?" Tsunade nodded, as everyone got up and jumped in that direction. She then said, "We're coming Naruto-kun." Hio and Chimera ran towards the house to try to get any others and hide from any trouble that might head their way. Gaara and Matasori were meditating until they felt Naruto's chakra pulse. They both looked at one another and then jumped up speeding off in the direction of Naruto's chakra flare. Not a word given between the two, as she knew how much Naruto meant to him and to her by default. In the way he had brought Gaara back from the brink of insanity, for that she would be forever grateful.